What if Harry had summoning system and could pull random legendary wizards from history to fight for him? Chapter 1, The Goblet spit out a war declaration. Harry Potter woke up with the distinct sensation that someone had replaced his brain with a bag of smashed glass. It wasn't the scar, he knew the burning, stinging itch of the lightning bolt like he knew the back of his hand. This was different. This was deeper. It felt like his very soul was being stretched, stapled, and reformatted by a cosmic IT guy who didn't know what he was doing. He groaned, rolling over in his four-poster bed, the red velvet hangings of the Gryffindor dorm swimming into focus. The dorm was quiet, filled only with the rhythmic snoring of Neville Longbottom and the soft whistling breath of Seamus. It was early. Too early. The sun hadn't even thought about cracking the horizon yet. Harry squeezed his eyes shut, trying to banish the headache, but when he opened them again, the world hadn't gone back to normal. There was text floating in front of his face. Blue, translucent, semi-opaque text, hovering in the air like a smudge on a pair of glasses he couldn't take off. System initialization complete, welcome, Warlord. Harry blinked. He rubbed his eyes. He slapped his own cheek, hard enough to sting. The text didn't move. It just pulsed, waiting. Great, Harry whispered, his voice raspy with sleep. I've finally cracked. For years of this nonsense and I've finally gone stark raving mad. Hermione's going to have a field day. He tried to wave his hand through the text. His fingers passed right through the light, but the movement seemed to trigger something. The text scrolled, dissolving into particles before reforming into a new menu. It looked like a video game interface, the kind Dudley used to scream at while smashing controllers in the living room. User, Harry James Potter, Class, Summoner, Current Mana, 100 out of 100, Active Summons, 0, Available Legends, 0, Locked, Random Pull Available, 1, Harry sat up, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. This wasn't a hallucination. Hallucinations were floaty, dreamlike things. This was sharp. Defined. It had a sleek, aggressive font. It looked expensive. Warlord. Harry muttered, staring at the greeting. I'm a 14-year-old with a wand and a bad attitude. Who are you calling a warlord? System notice, threat level detected rising. Hogwarts is no longer a school. It is an arena. Prepare yourself. The message was ominous, chilling, and completely at odds with the cozy warmth of the blankets. Harry swung his legs out of bed, the cold stone floor biting at his bare feet. He needed water. He needed to wash his face. He needed to figure out why the universe had decided to turn his life into an RPG. He walked to the bathroom, splashing freezing water onto his face. He looked up at the mirror. He looked the same, messy black hair, green eyes, skinny frame that spoke of too many skipped meals at the Dursleys. But there was something else now. A faint, almost imperceptible hum beneath his skin. It felt like static electricity, like he was standing next to a high-voltage power line. The blue box followed him. It hovered in the corner of his vision, persistent and annoying. Tutorial quest, First Blood, action, perform your first summon. Reward, system unlock plus basic weaponry mastery. Summon. Harry whispered. He gripped the edge of the porcelain sink. Summon what? A rabbit? A Patronus? Clarification, the system does not summon tricks. The system summons history. Pull from the river of time. Call forth a warrior. Harry stared at the text. It was insane. It was impossible. Magic could do a lot of things, fly brooms, transfigure cats into teacups, make things float, but pulling people out of history. That was necromancy. That was dark stuff. That was the kind of thing that got you a one-way ticket to Azkaban with a Dementor escort. But then, the text flickered again. Warning, Halloween is approaching. The goblet burns. You are unarmed. Pull. Harry felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. Halloween. It was always Halloween. First year, the troll. Second year, the chamber. Third year, Black slashing the fat lady. Today was October 31st. The Goblet of Fire was choosing the champions tonight. He wasn't entered. He didn't want to be entered. He wanted a quiet year where he could watch people chase a dragon or whatever and eat popcorn. "I'm not doing this," Harry said to the air. "Do it or die unprepared." The system was pushy. Harry liked that even less. But the humming under his skin was getting louder, itching like a scab he needed to pick. It was a compulsion. A deep, primal urge to reach out and grab something. "Fine," Harry snapped, his temper flaring. He was tired of being confused. "How do I do it?" "Focus on the slot. Visualize the pull. Offer your mana." A slot machine interface appeared in his vision. 3 spinning wheels with question marks. It looked ridiculous. It looked like a gambling game in a cheap arcade. Harry closed his eyes. He reached into that well of magic inside him, the place where he pulled power for his Expelliarmus or his Patronus. Usually, magic felt like a warm river. This time, as he directed it toward the system, it felt like he was pouring gasoline onto a fire. Swoosh! His mana bar dropped. Mana, 50 out of 100, the wheels in his vision spun. Blur of colors. Gold, red, black, silver. The sound of ratcheting gears filled his ears, loud and grinding, though he knew it was all in his head. Click. 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 The wheels stopped. Result, Common Tier. Roman Legionnaire, Class, Infantry, Dot. Harry opened his eyes. The air in the bathroom temperature plummeted 10 degrees in a split second. Breath misted in front of his face. The shadows in the corner of the room didn't just darken, they boiled. They twisted and writhed, bleeding out of the stone like ink in water, swirling into a central point on the tiled floor. There was a sound like a heavy sack of meat hitting the ground. Thud. Then, the smell hit him. It wasn't the smell of magic. It was the smell of old iron, wet leather, unwashed sweat, and dried blood. It was the smell of violence. The shadows snapped back, revealing a man. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't pearl white and see-through. He was solid. He was massive. He was wearing segmented plate armor, Lorica segmentata, that was dented and scratched. A heavy rectangular shield, scutum, rested against his leg. A short sword, gladius, hung at his hip. The man looked confused. He had a thick, dark beard and a scar running through his left eyebrow. He blinked, looking around the tiled Hogwarts bathroom, then his eyes locked onto Harry. The soldier straightened up, his armor clanking loudly. He slammed his fist against his chest. "Imperator," the soldier grunted. His voice sounded like gravel grinding together. Harry backed up, hitting the sink. "Holy!" The soldier took a step forward, his sandals slapping the wet stone. He looked ready to kill whatever Harry pointed at. He looked real. At ease. Harry squeaked, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat and tried to channel some of that warlord energy the system talked about. "Stay back." The soldier froze instantly, disciplined to the core. He stood like a statue, waiting for orders. System note: summons are bound to your will. They cannot harm you. They exist to serve. Duration for Tier 1 10 minutes or until dismissed. Harry stared at the man. This was a Roman soldier. A guy who had probably marched across Europe 2,000 years ago, killed people for an empire that no longer existed, and died in the mud somewhere. And now he was in a bathroom in Scotland because Harry Potter spun a mental roulette wheel. "You're real," Harry whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. He touched the cold metal of the soldier's shoulder plate. It was freezing, but solid. I just pulled a dead guy out of history. The soldier didn't flinch. He just watched the door, scanning for threats. This is insane, Harry breathed, a wild, terrified laugh bubbling up in his chest. This is absolutely mental. Quest complete, first blood. Reward, basic blade mastery, passive. You now know how to hold a knife without cutting yourself. Knowledge flooded Harry's brain. It wasn't like reading a book. It was like muscle memory downloading directly into his nervous system. Suddenly, looking at the gladius on the soldier's hip, Harry understood the weight of it. He knew how to thrust, how to parry, how to step into a guard. He'd never held a sword in his life, but his hand twitched with the ghost of 1,000 drills. Okay, Harry said, his breathing heavy. Okay. Dismiss. Go back. Wherever you came from. The soldier nodded once. Veil, Imperator. The shadows surged up again, swallowing the man whole. The iron smell faded. The temperature rose back to normal. The bathroom was empty, save for Harry and his reflection. Harry stared at himself in the mirror. He looked paler than usual. Warlord, he tested the word again. The blue box pulsed in the corner of his vision. Current objective, survive the selection. Harry washed his face one more time, scrubbing hard. He had a feeling he was going to need a lot more than a gladius to get through today. The great hall was buzzing with a manic energy that made Harry's teeth ache. It was Halloween night. The feast was laid out, gold plates piled high with roast beef, pumpkins, heavy breads, and pitchers of pumpkin juice, but nobody was really eating. All eyes were on the goblet of fire. The ancient wooden cup sat on a plinth at the head of the staff table, blue flames dancing lazily from its rim. It looked harmless. It looked like a glorified oversized egg cup. But the magic rolling off it was thick enough to taste. Harry sat at the edge of the Gryffindor table, picking at a baked potato. Ron was sitting next to him, practically vibrating with excitement. I'm telling you, Harry, Ron said, spraying crumbs everywhere. It's gonna be Angelina. She's got the nerve. Or maybe Diggory from Hufflepuff, though he's a bit of a pretty boy, isn't he? Yeah, Harry mumbled, not looking up. The system interface was currently analyzing the food on his plate. Item, roasted potato. Nutritional value, low. Status, safe to consume. It was distracting. He swiped the notification away mentally. You okay, mate? Ron nudged him. You look like you've seen a Grim. Just a headache, Harry lied. Bad sleep. Across the hall, the Beauxbatons students were eating tiny portions of strange salads, looking shivering and miserable in their blue silk robes. Fleur Delacour was there, her silver blonde hair catching the candlelight. She looked bored. The system highlighted her with a faint golden outline. Entity, Fleur Delacour. Threat level, moderate. Potential, high. Vila heritage detected. Harry blinked. Threat level. Since when was a French student a threat? At the Slytherin table, the Durmstrang students sat like a military unit. Victor Crumb was scowling at a goblet of wine. The system outlined him in red. Entity, Victor Crumb. Threat level, high. Physicality, peak. Flight capability, extreme. Harry stabbed his potato. The system was turning everyone into stats. It was dehumanizing, but in a way, it made sense. If Hogwarts was an arena, then everyone else was just an obstacle. The goblet is almost ready, Dumbledore announced, standing up. The hall went silent instantly. The old headmaster looked majestic in his starry robes, but the system tagged him with a label that made Harry choke on his water. Entity, Albus Dumbledore. Threat level, extreme. Status, Grand Sorcerer. Note, do not engage. The champions will be selected in 1 minute, Dumbledore said, his voice amplified by magic. When your name is called, please come forward and proceed into the antechamber. The flames in the goblet turned red. Sparks flew. Here we go. Ron whispered. A tongue of fire shot into the air, carrying a charred piece of parchment. Dumbledore snatched it out of the air. The champion for Durmstrang, he read, is Viktor Krum. A roar of applause from the Slytherins and Krum's brothers-in-arms. Krum stood up, slouching, and slouched his way into the back room. The flames turned red again. Another parchment. The champion for Beauxbatons, Dumbledore shouted, is Fleur Delacour. Polite applause. The Ravenclaws cheered mostly. Fleur swept back her hair and glided out of the room. One more. The Hogwarts champion. The Gryffindor table was holding its collective breath. The fire popped. The parchment fluttered down. The champion for Hogwarts, Dumbledore called out, is Cedric Diggory. The Hufflepuff table exploded. Screaming, stamping, hugging. Cedric, looking flushed and happy, grinned and made his way to the front. Harry let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. It was over. 3 champions. Done. No Harry Potter saving the day. No deadly tournaments. He could just focus on this weird system thing in private and maybe learn how to summon a gladiator to do his potions homework. Excellent. Dumbledore beamed, spreading his arms. We now have our 3 champions. But in the end, only one will go down in history. Only one will hoist this chalice of champions, this vessel of victory, the Triwizard Cup. Harry started to clap along with everyone else. He turned to Ron. Told you it wouldn't be me. You owe me a sickle. Ron laughed. Yeah. Whatever. And then the goblet of fire turned red again. The applause died. It was like someone had cut the sound cable. Silence rushed back into the hall, heavy and suffocating. Dumbledore's smile faltered. He turned back to the cup. A 4th tongue of flame, violent and sputtering, shot high into the air. A long piece of parchment fluttered down, looking scorched around the edges. Dumbledore caught it. He held it far away, reading it in the candlelight. He didn't speak for a long moment. Harry felt the humming under his skin turn into a roar. The system flashed red, covering his entire vision. Event triggered, the Tournament of Death. Quest updated, survive. Acceptance, mandatory. Harry Potter. Dumbledore whispered it first. Then he cleared his throat and said it louder, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. Harry Potter. Every head in the great hall turned. Hundreds of eyes. Accusation. Shock. Anger. Harry. Ron whispered. But it wasn't a friendly whisper. It was cold. You said you didn't put your name in. I didn't, Harry said, standing up. His legs felt like lead. Harry Potter. Dumbledore called again, sharper this time. Up here, if you please. Go on, Hermione hissed, pushing him. She looked terrified. Harry walked. The walk felt like miles. He could hear the whispers starting. He's done it again. Glory Hound. How did he do it? Cheat. Harry kept his eyes forward. Rage was bubbling up inside him. Not fear. He was done with fear. He was angry. He was angry at the universe, angry at Dumbledore's lack of security, angry at the goblet, and angry at the system for predicting this. They think I'm a cheat. Harry thought, his fists clenching at his sides. Fine. If they want a show, I'll give them a war. He reached the front of the hall. Dumbledore looked down at him, eyes searching behind half-moon spectacles. There was no twinkle tonight. Through the door, Harry, Dumbledore said quietly. Harry didn't say a word. He walked past the teachers, Snape looking murderous, McGonagall looking pale, Hagrid looking confused, and pushed open the door to the antechamber. The small room was lined with portraits of witches and wizards who were judging him silently. Krum, Fleur, and Cedric were standing by the fire. "What is it?" Fleur asked, looking Harry up and down with a sneer. "Do they want us back in the hall?" "No," Harry said, his voice flat. He walked over to the fire and stared into the flames. "I'm in." "What?" Cedric asked, laughing nervously. "What do you mean, you're in?" Before Harry could answer, the door banged open. Ludo Bagman bounced in, looking delighted, followed by a stream of angry headmasters and teachers. "Extraordinary!" Bagman shouted. "Absolutely extraordinary! A fourth champion! It is a joke!" Madame Maxime shouted, her massive frame filling the doorway. "Top Hogwarts trickery!" "I agree," Karkaroff spat, his goatee trembling. "This boy cannot compete. It is against the rules. 2 champions for Hogwarts. I spit on this tournament." "Did you put your name in the goblet of fire, Harry?" Dumbledore asked calmly, though the pressure in the room was immense. He had his hands on Harry's shoulders. It felt like an interrogation. "No," Harry said. "Did you ask an older student to do it for you?" "No." "You're lying." Snape snarled from the back. "The boy is pathologically arrogant. He couldn't stand the attention being on someone else for 5 minutes." "Severus," Dumbledore warned. "Hell with this," Harry said. He shrugged Dumbledore's hands off his shoulders. The movement was sudden, aggressive. The adults blinked. Harry Potter didn't usually shrug off the headmaster. "I didn't put my name in," Harry said, his voice rising, cutting through the arguments. "I don't want to be here. I don't care about your stupid cup. But if you're telling me I have to compete—" "The rules are absolute," Barty Crouch Sr. said from the shadows, his face gaunt and pale. "The Goblet of Fire constitutes a binding magical contract. Mr. Potter has no choice. He competes, or he loses his magic." Harry looked at Crouch. Then he looked at Snape, who was sneering. Then at Fleur and Krum, who looked at him like he was a bug to be squashed. The system hummed. Contract acknowledged. Scenario, 1 versus all. Unlocking random summon token. Ready. "Fine," Harry said. His voice was cold steel. "I'll compete." "He is a boy." Maxine protested. "He will die." Harry turned to look at the giant woman. He didn't look scared. He looked bored. "I've fought a basilisk, a werewolf, 100 dementors, and Voldemort twice," Harry said. The use of the name made everyone flinch except Dumbledore. "I think I can handle a school sports day." He turned and walked out of the room before they could dismiss him. The Gryffindor common room was a party. People were cheering, yelling, waving banners. They thought he was a hero. They thought he had pulled a fast one on the age line. Harry pushed through them, ignoring the backslaps and the cheers. He just wanted to get to his bed. He wanted to look at the system and figure out how not to die. He climbed the stairs to the dormitory. He opened the door. Ron was sitting on his bed. The curtains were drawn on the other beds. "So," Ron said. He didn't look up. "Congratulations." "I didn't do it, Ron," Harry said, taking off his robe and throwing it on his trunk. "Right," Ron said. A short, sharp laugh. "You didn't do it. Just like you didn't get the invisibility cloak, or the firebolt, or the map. Everything just falls into your lap, doesn't it, Harry?" "I'm telling you the truth," Harry said, turning to face him. "Someone is trying to kill me, Ron. Again." "Oh, poor Harry," Ron spat, standing up. His face was red, contorted with years of second-fiddle resentment. "Always the victim. But you're not the victim this time, are you? You're the champion." You're the one everyone's talking about. Again. Did you even think about telling your best mate? Or was I just too pathetic to know? You're being an idiot, Harry said quietly. And you're a liar, Ron shot back. He yanked his curtains shut. Stay away from me, Potter. Harry stood there in the dark room. The silence was heavy. He felt a cracking sensation in his chest, the last tether to his childhood snapping. Ron didn't believe him. The school hated him. The teachers suspected him. He was alone. System notice, isolation confirmed. Allies, 0, it is time to build your own army. Use summon token. Y/N, Harry sat on his bed. He looked at the closed curtains of Ron's bed. Yes, Harry whispered. Do it. Spinning, the wheels in his vision turned again. Whir, click, 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 result, legendary tier. Class, warrior/leader. Identity, Godric Gryffindor. Harry froze. What? The air in the dormitory didn't just get cold this time. It got heavy. It felt like the gravity had been turned up. The floorboards groaned. A massive hand, calloused and scarred, gripped the edge of Harry's bed frame. By the blood of the dragon, a voice boomed, deep and resonant, like a drum beating in a cave. Who summons the lion from his rest? A man stood up from the shadows at the foot of Harry's bed. He was gigantic. He had a mane of wild red hair, streaked with gray. He wore heavy chainmail under a red tunic, fur-lined boots, and a sword belt that held a blade as long as Harry's leg. He had a thick beard and eyes that burned like embers. He looked at the room. He looked at Ron's closed curtains. Then he looked at Harry. You, the giant man rumbled. He leaned down, his face inches from Harry's. He smelled of wood smoke and steel. You are small. You are skinny. You have the eyes of a killer, but the arms of a scribe. I'm Harry, Harry squeaked. Then he cleared his throat. I summoned you. Summoned? The man laughed. It was a loud, boisterous sound that shook the window panes. I was drinking mead in the halls of Valhalla, boy. And you yanked me out. He straightened up and drew his sword. The metal sang as it left the scabbard. It was the sword of Gryffindor, the real one. Not the shiny artifact in Dumbledore's office, but a weapon of war, notched and stained. I am Godric, he roared. Lord of the Moor. Slayer of the Goblin King Ragnarok. Founder of this castle. Shoo! Harry hissed, waving his hands frantically. You'll wake everyone up. Godric looked at him, confused. Wake them? Are we not under siege? Why did you summon me if not for battle? It's complicated, Harry said. I have enemies. Everywhere. I need help. Godric lowered his sword. He peered at Harry closely. The intensity in the man's eyes was terrifying. Enemies, Godric grunted. He liked that word. Good. Peace makes men soft. You look soft, boy. We will fix that. He sheathed his sword with a clatter. If I am to fight for you, you must be worthy. We start at dawn. Dawn? Harry asked. Dawn! Godric shouted. We will run until your lungs burn. We will fight until your hands bleed. If you want the power of Gryffindor, you will earn it. System alert, legendary summon Godric Gryffindor bonded. Warning, high mana drain. Summon can only be maintained for short bursts until user levels up. Current status, the founder is displeased with your physique. Harry slumped back on his pillow. He had Godric Gryffindor standing at the foot of his bed, looking ready to punch a hole in the wall just to see if he could. Sleep now, Godric commanded, crossing his massive arms and leaning against the doorframe like a bouncer. I will stand guard. If any dark wizards come through that door, I will separate their heads from their shoulders. Harry looked at the founder of his house. He looked at the system interface glowing softly in the dark. For the first time all day, the knot of anxiety in his chest loosened. Ron was gone. The school hated him. Voldemort was out there. But Harry had a Roman legionnaire in his pocket and Godric Gryffindor guarding his door. "Okay," Harry whispered. "Let them come." The next morning Harry didn't wake up. He was woken up. Up. The sun is high and your muscles are atrophied. Harry was yanked out of bed by his ankle. He hit the floor with a thud. Godric was standing over him, looking vibrant and entirely too awake. "Get dressed," Godric barked. "We run the lake." "I have class," Harry groaned, rubbing his head. "Class?" Godric scoffed. "Can you swing a blade? Can you cast fire with your bare hands?" "No." "Then your classes are useless. Move." Harry dragged himself up. The other boys were staring, wide-eyed, from behind their curtains. Seamus looked like he was about to faint. Neville was hiding under his duvet. "Who is that?" Dean Thomas whispered. "My personal trainer," Harry muttered, grabbing his clothes. They ran. Godric didn't run, he marched at a pace that forced Harry to sprint. They did laps around the black lake in the grey morning mist. Every time Harry slowed down, Godric shouted insults at him in Old English. "Pathetic. A pixie has more stamina. Move your legs, boy." By the time they got back to the castle, Harry was drenched in sweat, his lungs burning, his legs shaking like jelly. But he felt good. He felt awake. They walked into the great hall for breakfast. The hall went silent. Harry walked in, sweaty, disheveled, with a glowing blue interface hovering over his shoulder that only he could see. And behind him, though invisible to everyone else thanks to the system's spirit mode, walked Godric Gryffindor, critiquing the architecture. "Too many windows," Godric grumbled invisibly. "Easily shattered. Terrible defensibility. Who designed this annex? Hufflepuff? Must have been." Harry sat down at the Gryffindor table. He ignored Ron, who scooted away. He ignored Hermione, who looked like she wanted to ask 20 questions but was too scared of his expression. He piled eggs onto his plate. He ate like a starving wolf. "Mr. Potter," a cold voice sneered. Harry looked up. Snape was standing there, looking down his nose. "You look like a disgrace," Snape said softly. "Brawling in the mud. Perhaps you've finally decided to live like the animal you are." Harry chewed his eggs. He swallowed. "Morning, Professor," Harry said calmly. "Detention," Snape said. "For your appearance. And 5 points from Gryffindor." Schwing. The sound was only audible to Harry. Godric had materialized next to the table, visible only to Harry, his hand on his sword hilt. He was leaning into Snape's face, screaming silently. "This greasy sorcerer insults my kin. Say the word, boy. I will cleave him in twain." Harry choked on his pumpkin juice to stop himself from laughing. The image of Godric Gryffindor beheading Severus Snape in the middle of breakfast was too much. "Is something funny, Potter?" Snape narrowed his eyes. "No, sir," Harry coughed. "Just, imagining the future." "Potter," another voice called. It was McGonagall. She looked stern. "Mr. Crouch and the other champions are meeting in the trophy room for the wand weighing ceremony. You are late." "Right," Harry said, standing up. He wiped his mouth. "Let's go." The wand weighing the trophy room was small. Rita Skeeter was there, her quick-quotes quill scratching furiously on a pad. Ollivander was sitting at a desk. "Ah, the fourth champion," Skeeter grinned, her gold teeth flashing. "The tragic little hero. Come in, Harry. Tell us, how does it feel to be a cheat? Or is it a cry for help? Harry ignored her. He leaned against the wall. Godric stood next to him, invisible, glaring at Krum. That one, Godric pointed at Krum. He has the stance of a warrior. The rest look like soft cheese. Ollivander weighed the wands. Fleur's was rosewood and Vila hair. Cedric's was ash and unicorn hair. Krum's was hornbeam and dragon heartstring. And finally, Ollivander said, Mr. Potter. Harry handed over his holly wand. 11 inches. Phoenix feather, Ollivander mused. Nice and supple. He cast a stream of wine from it, nodded, and handed it back. Excellent, Bagman clapped. Photos time. Harry, come to the front. Skeeter beckoned. Maybe one of you crying. Or looking defiant. Harry didn't move. I'm not taking photos, Harry said. Don't be shy. Skeeter grabbed his arm. Her grip was like a claw. Harry reacted on instinct. Or rather, the system reacted. Threat detected. Grapple initiated. Harry's hand shot out. He grabbed Skeeter's wrist, twisted it using the Roman leverage technique he'd downloaded, and shoved her back against a display case. The glass rattled. The room went dead silent. Skeeter gasped, her quill falling to the floor. Don't touch me, Harry said softly. His eyes were cold. And don't write lies about me. If I read one word I don't like, I won't sue you. I'll find you. He released her. She rubbed her wrist, looking at him with wide, terrified eyes. She had seen something in his face, not a schoolboy, but a soldier. Harry. Dumbledore admonished, stepping forward. I'm done here, Harry said. He turned and walked out. As he walked down the corridor, the system chimed. Reputation increased, fear. Mana regenerated, 100 out of 100. Godric Gryffindor approves of your aggression. You handled the witch well, Godric's voice rumbled in his ear. But you rely too much on the wand. A stick can be snapped. A fist is forever. Teach me, Harry said, walking towards the heavy oak doors of the castle. He was done with classes for the day. He was done with being a student. We go to the forest, Godric said eagerly. There are beasts there. We will hunt. Harry smiled. A grim, sharp smile. Lead the way, old man. Harry Potter stepped out into the grounds, the wind whipping his robe. He wasn't the boy who lived anymore. He was the summoner. And he was going to win this war, one legend at a time. Chapter 1 end. Chapter 2, Wands are for cowards, use a sword. 4 in the morning came way too fast. Harry was pretty sure he hadn't even hit REM sleep when the mattress underneath him literally flipped over. He hit the cold stone floor of the dormitory face first, tangling in his sheets like a mummy who'd had a really bad night out. Get up, whelp. The voice was loud enough to rattle the window panes in their frames. Seamus snorted in his sleep, rolled over, and mumbled something about Cornish pixies, but didn't wake up. That was the magic of the system. Godric Gryffindor was currently operating on a frequency only Harry could hear, which was great for secrecy but terrible for Harry's eardrums. Harry groaned, untangling himself and pushing up onto his elbows. The blue interface greeted him before his eyes could even focus on the massive, ghostly Viking standing over him. System alert, daily quest initiated. Quest, the Founder's Gauntlet. Objective, survive Morning Point. Failure penalty, no breakfast. Also, pain. I'm up, Harry whispered, rubbing a bruise on his knee. I'm up. You don't have to destroy the furniture, Godric. Godric Gryffindor loomed in the darkness, arms crossed over a chest that was wider than a beer barrel. He was in spirit mode, glowing with a faint, spectral red light that cast long, weird shadows across the room. The sun waits for no king. Godric boomed. And you are no king. You are a stick insect with a magic twig. Move. Harry scrambled. He threw on a pair of oversized gray sweatpants and a t-shirt that had once belonged to Dudley. It hung off his frame like a sail. Godric sneered at the attire. Is that your armor? Cotton. We will find you leather. And steel. But for now, it will have to do. To the grounds. Harry grabbed his wand from the nightstand out of habit. Leave the twig. Godric commanded. Harry paused. I can't just leave my wand. It's, you know, I'm a wizard. You are a warrior first, Godric growled, leaning down until his spectral nose was touching Harry's. If you drop the stick, do you die? If it snaps, do you surrender? No. You are the weapon. The stick is a tool. Leave it. Harry looked at his wand, the holly and phoenix feather that had saved his life a dozen times. Then he looked at the floating blue box above Godric's head that read, Trainer Level, Legendary. He set the wand back on the nightstand. Fine, Harry said, feeling naked. Let's go. They sneaked out of the common room. The fat lady was snoring in her frame and didn't even twitch as Harry slipped through the portrait hole. The castle was silent, a tomb of stone and shadow. Usually, Harry would be terrified of Filch or Mrs. Norris, but walking next to a 7-foot-tall spectral warlord gave him a different kind of confidence. Passive skill active, stealth of the hunter. Noise reduced by 40%. They reached the entrance hall and slipped out the oak front doors into the biting chill of a Scottish November morning. The mist was thick, clinging to the grass like wet wool. Run, Godric said. Harry started to jog towards the Black Lake. I said run. Harry sprinted. Faster. The Vikings are coming. They want your gold and your head. Move those chicken legs. Harry pushed harder, his breath clouding in front of him. The cold air burned his lungs. He hit the edge of the lake and turned to follow the shoreline, his sneakers slipping in the mud. Into the trees. Godric pointed a massive finger toward the forbidden forest. That's out of bounds. Harry wheezed. Do enemies respect boundaries? Godric roared, running effortlessly alongside him, hovering slightly above the mud. Does the Dark Wizard check the rulebook? Into the dark, boy. That is where the wolves live. Harry gritted his teeth and veered left, plunging into the tree line. The canopy swallowed the moonlight. It was pitch black instantly. Roots snagged at his ankles. Brambles tore at his t-shirt. Eyes up. Godric coached. Don't look at your feet. Look at the path. Read the terrain. A root is a trap. A branch is a spear. Dodge. Harry ducked under a low-hanging limb just in time. Agility +1, they ran deeper than Harry had ever been, past the clearing where Aragog's children usually scurried, past the centaur trails. The deeper they went, the heavier the air felt. Stop, Godric ordered suddenly. Harry skidded to a halt, bracing himself against a mossy oak. He was gasping for air, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Why did we? Quiet, Godric hissed. The ghost drew his spectral sword. We are not alone. Harry froze. He listened. The forest was silent, too silent. No birds. No wind in the leaves. Then, the snap of a twig. Enemy detected. Entity, magical boar, corrupted, dot. Level, 15. Threat, high. A bush to their right exploded. A creature the size of a small car barreled out, tusks gleaming like jagged knives. It wasn't a normal pig. Its eyes were glowing red, and its hide looked like it was made of stone plates. Harry instinctively reached for his wand. His hand grasped empty air. Panic spiked in his chest. I don't have my wand. Good. Godric shouted. Use the environment. The boar turns like a wagon. Sidestep and strike. The boar squealed, a high, terrifying sound, and charged. The ground shook. Harry's brain screamed run, but the system screamed fight. Adrenaline surge activated. Time dilation, 10%. The world slowed down just a fraction. Harry saw the boar's muscles tense. He saw the trajectory of the tusks. He threw himself to the left, rolling over a pile of rotting leaves. The boar smashed into the oak tree Harry had been standing next to with a sound like a thunderclap. Wood splintered. It stuck. Godric yelled. Finish it. With what? Harry screamed, scrambling to his feet. A rock. A branch. Your teeth. Do not be a victim, Potter. Harry looked around wildly. He saw a heavy, jagged stone half buried in the mud. He grabbed it. It was heavy, cold, and rough. The boar was thrashing, trying to dislodge its tusks from the tree trunk. It was furious. Harry roared, a sound that surprised even him, and lunged. He didn't think about magic. He didn't think about Expelliarmus. He slammed the rock down onto the boar's skull with every ounce of strength his skinny arms possessed. Crack. The boar went limp. It slid down the tree trunk, twitching once before going still. Harry dropped the rock. He staggered back, his hands shaking. He looked at the dead monster. He looked at his hands. They were covered in dirt and dark, viscous blood. I killed it, Harry whispered. He felt sick. Godric floated over. He looked at the boar, then at Harry. For the first time, the founder didn't look angry. He looked proud. You killed it, Godric nodded. It was you or the beast. That is the only law that matters in the end. Quest complete, the Founder's Gauntlet. Reward, 500 XP. Level up. Harry Potter is now level 2. Attribute point gained, +1 strength. A rush of warmth flooded Harry's body, washing away the fatigue. The aches in his legs vanished. He felt stronger. Denser. Like his bones had been reinforced with steel. Clean your hands, Godric said quietly. We have potions class. And you will need steady fingers. Harry wiped his hands on the grass, breathing hard. He looked at the dead boar one last time. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't magical. It was brutal. Wands are for cowards, Harry muttered to himself, testing the weight of the new thought. Now you are learning, Godric grinned, his teeth sharp in the gloom. Let's jog back. Double time. By the time Harry walked into the great hall, he looked like he'd been dragged through a hedge backward, because he literally had been. There was mud in his hair, a scratch on his cheek, and his robes were disheveled. But he didn't care. He walked with a different gait. Before, Harry Potter walked to avoid attention, head down, shoulders slumped, moving quickly. Today, he walked like he owned the floor. He took up space. The hall went quiet as he entered. The whispers started immediately, like a hive of angry bees kicked over. Look at him. State of him. Think he's tough. Harry ignored them. The system was scanning the room, tagging threats. Threat, Draco Malfoy. Status, plotting. Threat, Severus Snape. Status, loathing. Threat, oatmeal. Status, lumpy. He sat down at the Gryffindor table. Ron was sitting 3 seats down. He stiffened when Harry sat but didn't look at him. Hermione was across from him, looking anxious. Harry, she hissed. Where have you been? You missed study hall. And look at you, you're bleeding. Morning run, Harry said, piling toast onto his plate. He felt ravenous. The system flashed a calorie deficit warning. He needed protein. He grabbed 4 sausages. A run. Hermione blinked. In the Forbidden Forest? Harry, that's dangerous. With everything going on, you should be in the library looking up shielding charms for the first task. Shields break, Harry said, taking a massive bite of sausage. I'm working on something else. What could possibly be better than defensive magic? Hermione demanded, her voice shrill with worry. Cardio, Harry said. A shadow fell over the table. Well, a simpering voice dripped from above. If it isn't the tragic champion. Harry didn't look up. He knew who it was. The smell of cloying perfume gave her away before the system even tagged her. Entity, Rita Skeeter. Class, journalist/parasite. Weakness, truth/pesticide. Harry kept eating. I have a proposition for you, Harry, Rita said, sliding onto the bench next to him uninvited. She was wearing acid green robes and holding her acid green quill. The readers are dying to know, how is the stress affecting you? Is the unkempt look a cry for help? A rebellion against authority? Her quill was already scratching on a notepad floating behind her shoulder. Harry Potter, looking deranged and smelling of swamp water, sat alone, abandoned by his peers. Harry put his fork down. Go away, Rita, he said calmly. Tisk, tisk, she tooted, reaching out to pat his messy hair. Don't be like that. I can make you a hero, Harry. Or I can make you a villain. It's all about the angle. Harry caught her hand before it touched him. His grip was iron. The strength point he'd put in earlier wasn't a joke. Rita gasped. You're hurting me. Harry turned to look at her. His green eyes were flat, devoid of the usual teenage awkwardness. I'm not playing your game, Harry said softly. I'm not a character in your little soap opera. The public has a right to know. Rita squeaked, trying to pull her hand back. Harry leaned in. He lowered his voice so only she could hear. System, he whispered. Intimidate. Skill activated, aura of the warlord. Effect, projects killing intent equal to current strongest summon. For a split second, Harry channeled Godric. Rita Skeeter didn't see a 14-year-old boy. For a heartbeat, she saw a blood-soaked Viking standing amidst a field of corpses, staring at her like she was a piece of meat. The air around them dropped 20 degrees. The candles flickered and died. Rita turned pale. Her makeup seemed to crack. If you write about me, Harry whispered, I won't send a letter to the editor. I will find out where you live. And I will bring the war to your doorstep. He let go of her hand. Rita scrambled back, knocking over a pitcher of pumpkin juice. She clutched her chest, breathing hard, looking at Harry with genuine terror. You're mad, she stammered. She grabbed her bag and scurried out of the hall, forgetting her floating quill, which dropped dead onto the table. The hall was silent again. Everyone was staring. Harry? Hermione whispered, looking at him with wide eyes. What did you say to her? Harry picked up his fork. Just gave her an exclusive. Godric, floating above the Ravenclaw table, laughed. A good skirmish. But never let the enemy retreat with their weapons. You should have snapped the quill. Next time, Harry muttered. The day dragged on. Double potions with the Slytherins was usually torture, but today, Harry felt detached. Snape prowled the dungeon, making snide comments about Harry's fame, but they bounced off. Harry had the system. Recipe detected, antidote to common poisons. Ingredients, bezoar, crushed, mistletoe berries, stewed, unicorn horn, powdered, dot. Guide mode, activated. Blue lines appeared over his cauldron, showing him exactly where to stir, exactly when to add the heat. It was like painting by numbers. Potter, Snape sneered, stopping by his desk. Tell me, Do you think celebrity grants you the ability to ignore the instructions on the board? Harry didn't look up. He was following a floating countdown timer. Add porcupine quills in 3, 2, 1. He dropped the quills. The potion turned a perfect, shimmering teal. Snape paused. He peered into the cauldron. He sniffed it. He looked annoyed that he couldn't find a fault. Adequate, Snape spat. For a cheat. Thanks, Harry said. When the bell rang, Harry packed his bag quickly. He just wanted to get back to the dorm and figure out how to summon something else. Godric was great for motivation, but he couldn't help with the magical side of things, and the first task was definitely going to involve magic. He walked out into the corridor, head down, checking his mana regen. Mana, 85/100. Like them, Potter? Harry stopped. Draco Malfoy was blocking the path, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. A dozen Slytherins were behind them, snickering. Malfoy was wearing a badge. It flashed support Cedric Diggory, then spun to read Potter stinks in luminous green letters. Want one? Malfoy smirked. I've got loads. But don't touch them, you might infect them with your mudblood-loving germs. Harry sighed. Move, Draco. You stink, Potter, someone yelled from the back. Literally. You smell like a pigsty. My father and I have a bet, you see, Malfoy drawled, stepping closer. I said you wouldn't last 10 minutes in the tournament. He disagrees. He thinks you won't last 5. Crabbe and Goyle guffawed like broken tubas. I don't care about your father, Harry said, stepping around him. Malfoy didn't like being ignored. His pale face flushed pink. Don't you turn your back on me. Harry heard the rustle of fabric. The intake of breath. The distinct sound of a wand slicing the air. Warning, attack incoming. Spell, Densajo. Trajectory, rear left. Harry didn't turn around. He dropped. The jet of white light sailed over his head, smashing into a suit of armor down the hall. Harry pivoted on his heel, crouching low. He exploded forward. Malfoy was still holding his wand arm extended, a look of shock on his face that Harry had dodged without looking. He didn't have time to cast again. Harry hit him at waist level. It was a perfect tackle, form perfected by the Roman legionnaire muscle memory. Oof. Malfoy hit the stone floor hard, the wind knocked out of him. His wand skittered away across the flagstones. Harry didn't stop. He scrambled up, pinning Malfoy's chest with his knee. He grabbed Malfoy's collar with his left hand and raised his right fist. The corridor went dead silent. This wasn't a wizard duel. This was a brawl. Get off him. Goyle shouted, lumbering forward. System alert, threat detected. Goyle. Harry didn't look. Godric. The spectral Viking appeared, invisible to everyone else, and roared in Goyle's face. The sheer psychic pressure of the ghost caused Goyle to stumble back, tripping over his own feet as a wave of inexplicable fear washed over him. Harry looked down at Malfoy. Draco's grey eyes were wide, filled with panic. He was struggling, but Harry was stronger. You pulled a wand on me while my back was turned, Harry said, breathing hard. Get off. Malfoy wheezed. My father will. Harry reached into his boot. He pulled out the jagged stone he'd kept from the forest. It wasn't a knife, but it looked sharp enough. He slammed it down next to Malfoy's ear. Clack. Stone chipped the floor. Malfoy screamed. Wands are for cowards, Harry hissed, leaning close. Next time you come at me, bring a sword. Or don't come at me at all. Mr. Potter. Professor McGonagall was running down the corridor, her hat askew. Harry stood up slowly. He pocketed the stone. He stepped back from Malfoy, who scrambled backward like a crab, clutching his ear as if checking it was still attached. "What is the meaning of this?" McGonagall demanded, looking between Malfoy on the floor and Harry, who stood with his fists clenched. "Malfoy attacked me from behind, Professor," Harry said calmly. "Self-defense. He tried to kill me with a rock." Malfoy shrieked, pointing a shaking finger. "He's a maniac." "Mr. Malfoy, is this true? Did you cast a curse?" McGonagall asked sharply. I. Malfoy stammered. "There are witnesses," Harry said, gesturing to the crowd of Hufflepuffs who had gathered. "Hannah. You saw it." Hannah Abbott looked nervous, but she nodded. "Malfoy cast a spell while Harry was walking away." McGonagall's lips thinned into a white line. "Detention, Mr. Malfoy. And 20 points from Slytherin. For attacking a fellow student. And another 20 for cowardice." She turned to Harry. Her eyes softened slightly, but she looked concerned. "Potter. Walk with me. Now." Harry adjusted his robes. He looked at Malfoy one last time. Draco wouldn't meet his eyes. "Reputation update, the school fears you. This is good." McGonagall didn't take him to her office. She took him to the hospital wing to get the scratch on his cheek healed, then left him with a stern warning to stop engaging in fisticuffs. Harry left the wing and turned a corner, only to be yanked into a classroom. He spun around, fists raised, system flaring red. "Constant vigilance, Potter." Alastor, mad-eyed Moody clumped into the light, his wooden leg thudding rhythmically. His magical eye was spinning wildly, trying to look through the back of his own head. "Professor," Harry relaxed slightly. "Don't grab people. You've got good reflexes," Moody grunted. He took a swig from his hip flask. "Better than yesterday. And I saw that tackle. Muggle fighting. Messy. Effective. Did you want something?" Harry asked. Moody leaned against a desk. His magical eye fixed on the empty space beside Harry, right where Godric was standing. Harry's heart skipped a beat. "Can he see him?" "You're walking differently, Potter," Moody growled. "You're carrying something. A heavy burden. Or maybe, a heavy friend." System alert, observer detected. Entity, Bartemius Crouch Jr., disguised, ... Threat, extreme. Deception, active. Harry froze. The text hovered right over Moody's scarred face. Crouch Jr. Harry thought frantically. Barty Crouch's son. He's dead. He died in Azkaban. But the system didn't lie. Harry forced his face to remain neutral. He needed to play this cool. If this guy was a Death Eater in disguise, Harry was in a room with a murderer. "Just stress, Professor," Harry shrugged. "Carrying the weight of the school's hate. You know how it is." Moody stared at him. The magical I word. Then, the scarred man grinned. It was a grotesque expression. "You've got fire in you, boy. I like it. The tournament, it changes people. It reveals what they really are. Use that anger. Use whatever resources you have found." He winked with his normal eye. "Now get out. And watch your back. Malfoy is a ferret, but Snape is a snake." Harry nodded and backed out of the room. As soon as the door clicked shut, he sprinted. "Godric," he whispered. "Did you see that? The man with the wooden leg?" Godric scoffed. "He smells of polyjuice and rot. He is not what he seems. An enemy in the camp." "Yeah," Harry breathed, ducking into a secret passage behind a tapestry. "A big enemy. I need to be ready. Physical training isn't enough. If he attacks me with magic, or if he tries to get into my head. My blade cannot cut thoughts," Godric admitted, sounding frustrated. I can teach you to cleave a shield, but I cannot teach you to shield your mind. Harry stopped in the middle of the dark passage. He pulled up the system interface. Mana, 95/100. Random pull available, 1, from level up, . I need a teacher, Harry said. Someone who knows magic. Dark magic. Someone who can teach me to keep people out of my head. Be careful, boy, Godric warned. The River of Time holds monsters as well as heroes. I don't need a hero, Harry said grimly. I need a weapon. He closed his eyes. System. Pull. Spinning, the wheels turned in his mind's eye. Whir. Harry poured his intent into the summon. Magic. Mind. Defense. Power. Click. 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 Result, legendary tier. Class, sorceress. Identity, Morgan Le Fay. The temperature in the passageway didn't drop this time. It spiked. The air became thick, smelling of ozone and crushed exotic flowers. The shadows on the walls lengthened, twisting into shapes that looked like grasping hands. A laugh echoed, low, throaty, and amused. Well, a voice purred. This is certainly not Avalon. Harry opened his eyes. Leaning against the stone wall, examining her fingernails, was a woman. She was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. She wore robes of shifting silk that looked like woven midnight. Her hair was dark as ink, floating slightly as if she were underwater. Her eyes were a piercing, glowing violet. She looked at Godric first. Godric, she drawled, her lip curling in distaste. You loud, boorish brute. Still wearing those dreadful furs? Witch. Godric roared, his hand going to his hilt. You treacherous snake. I should have known you would claw your way out of hell. Oh, hush, Morgan waved a hand, and Godric's mouth vanished. He shouted silently, furious. She turned her violet eyes to Harry. The weight of her gaze felt like a physical weight on his brain. And you, she stepped closer, circling him. She was tall. She smelled of danger. The summoner. You have power, child. Crude, raw, unrefined, but potent. She tapped his forehead, right on the scar. Ow. Harry flinched. And your mind, she'd scared. It's an open book. A messy, scribbled diary. Anyone could walk in and read your secrets. Even that one-legged man upstairs. That's why I summoned you, Harry said, trying to stand his ground. I need to learn occlumency. Fast. Morgan Le Fay smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a cat that had found a mouse with a broken leg. Occlumency is for scholars, she said. I teach mental fortification. It will hurt. I can take it, Harry said. Good. She moved faster than Harry could track. Her hand lashed out, not a spell, but a physical backhand. Smack. Harry's head snapped to the side. He stumbled, catching himself on the wall. What was that for? He shouted. You were thinking about how pretty I am, Morgan said boredly. Distraction. Pain focuses the mind. Clear your thoughts. Build a wall. Or I will hit you again. But, smack. Focus, she commanded. Her voice resonated in his skull. Visualize the fortress. You are not a boy, you are a vault. Nothing gets in unless you allow it. Harry gritted his teeth, tears stinging his eyes. He glared at her. Again, he spat. Morgan's eyes gleamed with approval. Better. The anger is a brick. Use it. System alert, legendary summon, Morgan Le Fay bonded. Passive effect, mana regen increased by 50%. Warning, summon is chaotic neutral. She may try to take over if your will falters. Harry stood in the dark corridor, flanked by a silenced Viking warlord and the most dangerous sorceress in history. His cheek stung, his muscles ached, and he was terrified. But as he looked at the two legends, a strange feeling settled in his chest. Voldemort had Death Eaters. Dumbledore had the Order. Harry Potter had a mythology. "Let's get to work," Harry said. Morgan raised her hand again. "Brace yourself, darling. This is going to be a long night." Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3, Dragons Don't Like Dead Kings. The morning of the first task tasted like ash and cheap coffee. Harry sat at the Gryffindor table, staring at a plate of toast that looked suspiciously like cardboard. The great hall was vibrating. Literally vibrating. The sheer volume of nervous energy, excited chatter, and teenage adrenaline was enough to shake the dust off the floating candles. System date, November 24, 1994, time until event, 2 hours, current objective, don't become barbecue. Mana, 110 out of 110, overcharged, eat, Godric Gryffindor commanded. The ghostly founder was sitting, or rather, hovering slightly above, the bench opposite Harry. Nobody else could see him, which was a mercy, because Godric was currently sharpening a spectral dagger on the edge of a silver platter, making a sound that set Harry's teeth on edge. "I'm not hungry," Harry mumbled, pushing the plate away. "Hunger is irrelevant." Godric slammed a fist onto the table. It passed through the wood, but the force of his spirit made the pumpkin juice ripple. "Your body is an engine. An engine needs fuel. If you face a dragon on an empty stomach, you will faint. And if you faint, you die. And if you die, I will resurrect you myself just to kill you again for being pathetic." "Fine," Harry sighed. He grabbed a piece of toast and shoved it into his mouth. Next to Godric, Morgan Le Fay was examining her reflection in a spoon. She looked bored. "Honestly, Godric," she drawled, flicking her long dark hair over her shoulder. "Let the boy starve. It heightens the senses. Besides, if he's going to use the strategy we discussed, he doesn't need calories. He needs malice." "Malice doesn't lift a shield," Godric grunted. "Malice breaks one," Morgan countered with a smirk that was all teeth. Harry chewed mechanically. The past 3 weeks had been a blur of hell. Between Godric running him into the ground physically, Harry now had calves that actually existed, and Morgan battering his mind into a fortress, he felt like a piece of iron that had been heated and hammered over and over again. He wasn't the same scrawny kid who'd walked into the goblet's fire. He felt heavier. Denser. When he walked through the corridors now, people moved. The Potter Stinks badges had disappeared after Harry had casually summoned a spectral Spartan to glare at a group of Hufflepuffs until they wet themselves. "Mr. Potter." Harry looked up. McGonagall was standing there. Her lips were thin, her face pale. She looked like she was attending a funeral. "Professor," Harry swallowed his toast. "It is time," she said softly. Her hand hovered over his shoulder, trembling slightly, before she pulled it back. "The champions are gathering in the tent on the grounds. You should bring your wand." Harry patted his pocket. "Got it." "Good luck, Harry," she whispered. It was the first time she'd used his first name in a classroom setting. "Just, survive." Harry stood up. The hall went quiet. It was the same silence as the Halloween feast, but different. It wasn't accusatory anymore. It was morbid curiosity. They were watching a gladiator walk to the lions. "Let's go," Harry said to the empty air. Godric stood up, expanding his chest. "To glory." Morgan floated up, rolling her eyes. "To the reptile petting zoo." Harry walked out of the great hall, the heavy oak doors booming shut behind him. The tent was a canvas claustrophobia chamber. It was pitched near the edge of the forbidden forest, close enough to the arena that the ground shook every few minutes. Inside, the air was hot and smelled of fear. Fleur Delacour was sitting on a low wooden stool in the corner. She looked pale. The system highlighted her with a faint blue aura. Entity, Fleur Delacour, status, anxious. HR, 120 BPM. She was muttering in French, her wand trembling in her hand. When Harry walked in, she snapped her head up. Her eyes narrowed. "You," she said, her voice tight. "Zay, little boy." "Hey, Fleur," Harry said casually, dropping his bag onto a cot. He started stretching his arms, ignoring the tension in the room. Victor Crumb was standing by the tent pole, staring at the ground. He looked like he was carved out of granite, but the system showed a different story. Entity, Victor Crumb, status, focused/adrenaline spike. Threat, high. Cedric Diggory was pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. He looked green. "Harry," Cedric nodded, forcing a smile that looked like a grimace. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be," Harry said. "They say it's big," Cedric whispered. "Whatever it is." "Dragons," Harry said. The three of them froze. "What?" Fleur asked sharpish. "It's dragons," Harry repeated. He checked his shoelaces. "Hagrid showed me. 4 of them. Big ones." Fleur let out a breath that sounded like a hiss. Crumb closed his eyes. Cedric looked like he was going to be sick. "Dragons," Cedric muttered. "Of course. Why would it be anything else?" Before they could panic further, the tent flap swept open. Ludo Bagman bounced in, wearing his old Vimborn Wasp's robes which were far too tight around the middle. "Champions," he beamed, looking around the room like he was hosting a birthday party and not a potential massacre. "Gather round. Time to pick your playmates." He held out a purple silk sack. "Ladies first," Bagman winked at Fleur. Fleur reached in, her hand shaking. She pulled out a tiny, moving model of a dragon. It was green, sleek, and nasty. "The Welsh green," Bagman announced. "Number 2. Crumb went next. "The Chinese fireball." "Number 3. Cedric took a deep breath. He reached in. "The Swedish short snout." "Number 1. Harry didn't need to look. He knew what was left. The system was already flashing a warning in bright red text across his vision. "Warning, apex predator detected. Target, Hungarian horntail. Attributes, fire range, long, aggression, extreme, armor, heavy, dot. Recommended strategy, prayer." Harry reached into the bag and pulled out the black, spiky lizard. It snapped at his fingers, breathing a tiny puff of sparks. It had the number 4 painted on its neck. "The Hungarian horntail," Bagman said, his smile faltering just a fraction. "Ah. Well. Good luck with that one, Harry." "Thanks," Harry said dryly. He tossed the model dragon into the air and caught it. "Right." Bagman clapped his hands. "Mr. Diggory. You're up when the cannon sounds." Waiting was the worst part. Harry sat on the cot, listening to the sounds of violence outside. First, the cannon. Then, the roar of the crowd. Then, silence. Then, a roar that wasn't human. It shook the ground. Dust fell from the tent ceiling. "Swedish short snout," Godric analyzed, listening to the pitch of the scream. "Sounds annoyed. Not angry yet. The boy is dodging." "He's transfiguring," Morgan corrected, her eyes closed as she sensed the magic in the air. "Turning rocks into dogs. Crude distraction." 10 minutes later, the crowd erupted. Cedric had done it. Then Fleur. Harry listened to the blasts of fire. He heard Fleur scream once, then silence, then a strange, melodic singing. "Enchantment," Morgan noted, impressed. "Sleeping charm." Risky on a reptile. Their metabolism burns through magic. Fleur made it. Then Crumb. Crumb was brutal. Harry could hear the dragon screaming in pain. Conjunctivitis curse, Harry guessed. Aiming for the eyes, Godric nodded approval. Effective. But if the beast thrashes, he will crush the eggs. Finally, Bagman's voice amplified by the sonorous charm boomed through the canvas. And now. For our final champion. The youngest ever. Harry Potter. Harry stood up. He cracked his neck. Quest, Dragon Slayer, Objective, retrieve the golden egg. Secondary objective, don't die. Reward, legendary token plus reputation boost. Time to go to work, Harry said. He walked out of the tent. The transition from the dim tent to the arena was blinding. The winter sun reflected off the rocky enclosure, creating a stark, whitewashed world. The noise hit him like a physical wall, thousands of students, teachers, and officials screaming his name. Some cheered. Some booed. Most just made a wall of sound. Harry walked into the center of the rocky bowl. It looked like a quarry. Boulders the size of cars were scattered around. And at the other end, chained to the ground but looking like it could snap those chains like paper streamers, was the horntail. It was black. Obsidian black. Its scales looked like armor plating. Its tail was spiked like a medieval mace. Its eyes were yellow vertical slits, radiating pure, unadulterated hate. It saw Harry immediately. Rohair. The sound wave hit Harry. His robes whipped back. He dug his heels into the gravel, leaning into the wind. Impressive, Godric said, standing next to Harry, looking up at the 50-foot nightmare. That is a proper beast. The scales will deflect standard spells. It's guarding the eggs, Harry noted, spotting the clutch of cement-gray eggs nestled under the dragon's front claws. One was gold. Are you going to use the stick? Morgan asked, examining her nails. Harry looked at his wand. He looked at the dragon. If he used magic, he'd have to fly. He'd have to summon the firebolt. But everyone expected that. Everyone expected Harry Potter, the Seeker. No, Harry said. I'm not flying today. He put his wand back in his pocket. The crowd gasped. The sound rippled through the stands. What is he doing? Ludo Bagman's voice echoed. Harry Potter has put away his wand. Has he gone mad? Maybe, Harry whispered. He closed his eyes. He focused on the system. Mana pool, 110/110. Summoning interface, ready. Select tier, legendary. Cost, 100 mana. I need a tank, Harry muttered. I need someone who looks at a monster and sees a rug. He visualized the slot machine. He poured everything he had into it. Whirr. The wheels spun in his mind. Gold. Red. Black. Click, 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 result, legendary tier. Class, Slayer/Berserker. Identity, Beowulf, the GEAT. The air pressure in the arena dropped. It wasn't like Godric's arrival, which felt heavy and regal. And it wasn't like Morgan's, which felt sharp and electric. This felt wet. The smell of salt water, rotting seaweed, and old, dried blood flooded the arena. A fog rolled in from nowhere, swirling around Harry's feet. What is happening down there? Bagman shouted. A fog has descended. From the fog, a sound emerged. A laugh. A low, guttural, insane laugh. Thud. 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 Heavy footsteps. A figure emerged from the mist, standing between Harry and the dragon. He was huge. Taller than Godric. He wasn't wearing armor. He was wearing tattered leather breeches and nothing else. His skin was a roadmap of scars, claw marks, bite marks, burn marks. He had long, matted blonde hair and a beard that looked like it had been chewed on. His muscles looked like coiled steel cables. He wasn't a bodybuilder, he was a force of nature. He turned to look at Harry. His eyes were wild, blue and bloodshot. "You called?" the man bellowed. His voice sounded like rocks grinding in a blender. "Beowulf," Harry said, feeling the mana drain hit him like a punch to the gut. He stumbled, but kept his footing. "I have a job for you." Beowulf turned back to look at the horntail. The dragon had stopped roaring. It was cocking its head, confused. It smelled a predator. Beowulf's grin widened until it looked like it would split his face. "A WIRM." Beowulf roared, spreading his arms wide. "You brought me a WIRM. Ha! It has been ages since I cracked a spine." "Pin it," Harry ordered. "Don't kill it. Just, keep it busy." "Busy?" Beowulf laughed. He slapped his own chest, leaving a red handprint. "I will make it weep." The horntail decided it had had enough. It opened its maw. Whoosh! A jet of fire, 40 feet long, exploded toward them. "Move!" Harry dove behind a boulder. Beowulf didn't move. The crowd screamed. The fire engulfed the Geat. It was an inferno. The rock around him turned black. Harry peeked out. Did I just waste my summon? The fire died down. Beowulf was standing there. His skin was smoking. His hair was singed. But he was laughing. "Is that it?" Beowulf screamed at the dragon. "I have bathed in pools of lava hotter than your breath, lizard." System note: legendary summon Beowulf has passive trait, Monster Skin. High resistance to elemental damage. The dragon looked genuinely offended. It roared and lunged, snapping its jaws forward to bite this annoying little man in half. Beowulf didn't dodge. He jumped. He launched himself straight into the dragon's face. The impact was sickening. Beowulf caught the dragon's upper and lower jaws with his bare hands. Grah! The dragon's momentum stopped dead. The creature thrashed, its claws tearing up the granite floor, its tail whipping around and smashing boulders to dust. But Beowulf held on. He was hanging from the dragon's mouth, his feet dangling, his muscles bulging as he forced the jaws apart. "Look at me!" Beowulf screamed into the dragon's throat. "Look at your death!" The crowd was silent. Absolute, pin-drop silence. Nobody breathed. Dumbledore was standing up in the judge's box, his mouth slightly open. Karkaroff looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Harry didn't watch. He ran. "Go left!" Godric shouted, running alongside him. "The tail is swinging back." Harry slid under the swinging tail. The spikes missed his head by inches. The wind of it messed up his hair. He scrambled over the loose rocks. Beowulf was now wrestling the dragon. He had let go of the mouth and had grabbed the horns. He was twisting the dragon's head, trying to flip the multi-ton beast like a cow. "Down, dog!" Beowulf roared. He slammed a fist into the dragon's eye. The horntail shrieked. It reared up, lifting Beowulf 50 feet into the air. Beowulf just laughed and started punching the dragon in the nose, over and over again. Bam! 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 Harry reached the nest. The heat radiating from the dragon's belly was intense. He saw the golden egg. It was wedged between two gray ones. "Grab and go," Harry whispered. He lunged for the egg. The dragon sensed him. Even while being punched in the face by a mythical king, it knew its treasure was being stolen. The tail whipped around again. Not a sweep this time. A stab. Warning, incoming. Harry rolled. The tail spike slammed into the ground where he had been a second ago, shattering the rock. Shrapnel flew. A piece of stone cut Harry's forehead, blood blinding his left eye. Harry! Hermione's scream pierced the silence of the crowd. Harry wiped the blood away. He grabbed the golden egg. It was heavy. Beowulf! Harry shouted. I got it. Beowulf, who was currently biting the dragon's ear, looked down. You have the prize? Yes. Let's go. AWWW, Beowulf pouted. But I was just getting started. I haven't even ripped off a wing yet. Dismiss. Harry yelled, activating the unsummoned command. Beowulf let go. He dropped 50 feet, landing in a crouch that cracked the bedrock. He looked at the dragon, which was shaking its head, confused and battered. Next time, WIRM, Beowulf threatened, pointing a finger. I wear your skin as a cape. He dissolved into golden mist. The dragon roared, looking for its tormentor. It saw Harry. It inhaled. Harry held the golden egg under his arm. He looked at the dragon. He didn't have the mana to summon anything else. He was running on fumes. But he had the egg. System, Harry whispered. Intimidate. Skill, Aura of the Warlord. Amplified by Beowulf's residual essence. Harry glared at the dragon. For a second, his shadow stretched out, taking the shape of the Slayer. Sit, Harry said. The dragon froze. It blinked. The memory of the man who punched fire was too fresh. It snorted, a plume of smoke hitting Harry in the face. Then, slowly, resentfully, it curled its tail around the remaining eggs and lay down. It surrendered. Harry turned around. He walked back toward the entrance. The silence held for exactly 3 seconds. Then, the stadium exploded. It wasn't just cheering. It was hysteria. People were hugging. People were crying. Fred and George Weasley were pretending to faint. Harry walked past the judges. Bagman was clapping so hard his hands looked red. Crouch looked terrified. Dumbledore. Dumbledore looked at Harry with a gaze that was heavy, calculating, and deeply sad. Harry didn't stop. He walked straight into the medical tent. Sit down, sit down. Madame Pomfrey was fluttering around him like a moth. Dragon fire. Blunt trauma. Are you mad, boy? Where is your wand? Pocket, Harry grunted, sitting on the bed. The adrenaline was crashing. His hands were shaking. You punched it. Pomfrey stammered, dabbing a stinging paste onto the cut on his forehead. I didn't, Harry said. My friend did. Friend? Pomfrey blinked. You're hallucinating. Concussion. Drink this. She shoved a potion down his throat. The tent flap opened. Fleur Delacour walked in. She was still wearing her torn robe from her task. Her hair was messy, singed at the ends. She stopped at the foot of Harry's bed. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Before, she had looked at him like a child. Like a mistake. Now, she looked at him like he was a loaded gun. Harry, she said. Her voice was husky. Hey Fleur, Harry said, wiping potion off his lip. Zat was. She struggled for the English word. Zat was savage. Savage. It worked, Harry shrugged. She took a step closer. The air in the tent felt suddenly charged. The system highlighted her again. Entity, Fleur Delacour, status, aroused/impressed. Attraction level, rising. Harry blinked. Aroused? You act like a boy, Fleur murmured, tilting her head. But you fight like a beast. I misjudged you. She reached out and touched the bandage on his forehead. Her fingers were cool. The Vila allure washed over him, not as a wave of confusion, but as a warm, inviting scent of flowers and summer rain. Harry's mental fortress, built by Morgan, held firm. He didn't drool. He didn't giggle. He just looked at her. "I'm not a boy," Harry said quietly. "Not anymore." Fleur's eyes widened slightly at his resistance. She smiled. A real smile. "No," she whispered. "I see that. Mr. Potter." Bagman burst in, ruining the moment. "Scores. You need to see the scores." Fleur pulled her hand back, but her eyes lingered on Harry's for a second longer before she turned away. Harry stood up and walked out to the judge's table. Maxime, 10. Crouch, 10. Dumbledore, 10. Bagman, 10. Karkaroff, 4. The crowd booed Karkaroff so loud that he actually shrank back in his seat. "Cheating!" Karkaroff yelled over the noise. "He used dark magic. He summoned a demon. He summoned a hero." Bagman shouted back. "And he got the egg faster than anyone else. Without a scratch." "Well, one scratch." Harry didn't care about the points. He looked at the scoreboard. He was tied for first place with Krum. He looked at the golden egg in his hand. It was vibrating. Item, golden egg. Hidden property detected. Do not open in public. "I'm going to bed," Harry announced. "But the party?" Bagman cried. "The press." "Bed," Harry said. He walked back to the castle. Godric materialized next to him. "A good fight," Godric said, clapping Harry on the back, which felt like being hit by a pillow. "Beowulf is a lunatic, but he has style. Did you see the look on the lizard's face?" "I saw," Harry smiled tiredly. "You are stronger," Godric noted. "But you relied on the summon. Next time, you must bleed the beast yourself." "Baby steps, Godric," Harry muttered. The Gryffindor common room was a riot. As soon as Harry climbed through the portrait hole, he was hoisted onto shoulders. Fred and George paraded him around. People shoved butterbeer into his hands. He didn't even use a wand. "Did you see that giant guy?" "Who was that?" "Harry's Patronus is a person." Harry played along for 10 minutes. He smiled. He drank the butterbeer. He accepted the apologies from people who had called him a cheat yesterday. He saw Ron in the corner. Ron was holding a banner that said Potter for President, clearly hasty transfiguration. He looked ashamed. Harry caught his eye. He nodded, just once. Ron's shoulders slumped in relief. But Harry didn't go over. He didn't have the energy for the "I'm sorry" conversation. "I'm tired," Harry shouted over the noise. "Gonna crash." "Let him sleep." George yelled. "The king needs his rest." Harry escaped up the stairs. He locked the dormitory door. He cast a silencing charm, wandless, thanks to Morgan's brutal drilling. He sat on his bed and placed the golden egg on his lap. "Okay," Harry whispered. "What are you?" He looked at the system. Quest item, the cryptic egg. Instruction, the egg contains a clue. But for you, it contains a warning. Open it. Harry took a deep breath. He twisted the latch. The egg fell open. It didn't wail. It didn't scream like a banshee. It hissed. It was a sound like static, like a radio tuned between stations. White noise. But within the noise, there were voices. Darkness comes, the void walks, flesh of the servant, bone of the father. The blue light of the system flickered and turned purple. Intercepted transmission. Source, unknown dark divinity. Decoding, the static cleared. A voice spoke. It wasn't human. It sounded like oil sliding over velvet. The summoner awakens. The scales tip. We must accelerate. The boy cannot be allowed to reach his potential. Harry froze. Prepare the graveyard. Feed the soil. If he brings the dead, we shall bring the erased. The egg snapped shut. Smoke curled from the rim. Harry sat in the dark dormitory, his heart pounding louder than it had in the arena. Godric? Harry whispered. No answer. Morgan? Nothing. System error, connection jammed. Local interference detected. You are being watched. Harry spun around, wand in hand. The room was empty. But on the window pane, written in the condensation of his own breath, were 3 words. See you soon. The writing faded as he watched. Harry gripped his wand until his knuckles turned white. He looked at the closed egg. Bring it on, he whispered to the dark. I've got an army now. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 5, The lake is deep and full of ghosts. The world was cold, wet, and smelled like old algae. Harry stood on the wooden docks that had been built out into the center of the black lake, shivering in his swimming trunks. The wind was whipping off the water, cutting right through him, but the shivering wasn't just from the temperature. It was the empty space beside him. Ron was gone. He'd woken up in the dormitory to an empty bed and a folded piece of parchment that just said, "The Champion's Treasure." No Ron snoring. No Ron complaining about the cold. Just silence and a system notification that had been pulsing red since 4 a.m. Quest alert, the Drowned Kingdom, objective, retrieve what was stolen. Time limit, 1 hour. Environmental hazard, extreme cold, darkness, void corruption. Void corruption. Harry muttered, hugging his arms to his chest. That sounds fantastic. Really great. Next to him, the other champions were stripping down to their swimwear. Cedric looked like he was about to vomit. Crumb was doing stretches that looked painful, his face set in a scowl. Fleur. Fleur looked terrified. She caught Harry's eye. She was shivering violently, her silver blonde hair whipped across her face. Since the Yule Ball, since that night they'd fought back-to-back against those assassins and the 3 musketeers had turned the Great Hall into a fencing school, things had been different. She didn't look at him like a little boy anymore. She looked at him like he was the only other person in the world who understood the target painted on their backs. Harry, she whispered, stepping closer. The wind carried her voice away, but he heard it. Gabrielle, my sister. She is gone too. Harry nodded grimly. We'll get them back. The water, Fleur hissed, looking down at the dark, churning surface. It smells wrong. My magic, it recoils from it. Harry looked down. The system highlighted the water in a murky, sickly green. Environment analysis, toxicity levels rising. Mana density, unstable. Detected interference, external dark magic. It's not just water today, Harry said low enough that only she could hear. Something's been dumped in it. Be careful, Fleur. Don't rely on standard charms. They might fizzle. Champions. Ludo Bagman's voice boomed over the crowd, amplified by a sonorous charm that made his enthusiasm sound almost manic. The stands built along the lakeshore were packed. Thousands of students, screaming, waving flags, completely unaware that they were watching a potential hostage crisis. Take your positions. Harry stepped to the edge of the dock. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the gillyweed Dobby had stolen from Snape's stores. The system scanned it. Item, gillyweed. Effect, aquatic adaptation, 1 hour, dot. Side effect, you will look ridiculous. He shoved the slimy ball of roots into his mouth. It tasted like rubbery spinach and dirt. He chewed, gagged, and swallowed. Ready? Bagman shouted. No, Harry thought. Begin. The cannon fired. Harry dove. The shock of the cold was instant. It felt like being punched in the chest by an iceberg. Harry squeezed his eyes shut as the water closed over his head. The icy grip seized his lungs, panic flaring for a second before the gillyweed kicked in. A burning sensation ripped through his neck. He reached up, feeling gills slicing open the skin below his ears. His hands and feet elongated, webbing sprouting between his fingers. He opened his eyes. The black lake was usually murky, a world of greens and browns. Today, it was gray. A dead, flat gray. The silence was absolute, pressing against his eardrums. Environment, underwater. Oxygen, unlimited, duration, 58 minutes, . Visibility, poor. Threat radar, active. Harry kicked his legs. The webbing propelled him forward with incredible speed. He felt like a torpedo. He shot deeper, leaving the surface light behind. System, Harry thought. Guide me. A blue arrow appeared in his vision, pointing down and to the left. Distance to target, 1.5 miles. Depth, 200 feet. He swam. The water felt heavy, viscous, like swimming through oil. Something wasn't right. The wildlife, usually timid schools of fish or the occasional giant squid tentacle waving lazily, was gone. The lake was empty. Then, the system pinged. Warning, hostile detected. Type, Grindylow swarm. Status, mutated. Harry spun around in the water. From the gloom of the weeds below, eyes appeared. Not the usual dull yellow eyes of Grindylows. These were glowing purple. They swarmed up from the depths like a cloud of angry hornets. There were dozens of them. But they weren't the small, frail water demons Harry had read about in Lupin's class. These things were swollen, their skin translucent and pulsating with dark veins. Their fingers were elongated into jagged bone spikes. Void corruption, Harry thought, his stomach churning. Voldemort's been busy. The swarm shrieked, a sound that traveled through the water as a high-pitched vibration that made Harry's teeth ache. They charged. Harry reached for his wand, but the water pressure made his movements sluggish. System. Combat mode. Activate, basic blade mastery. Weapon, none equipped. Use the environment. Harry twisted in the water as the first Grindylow lunged. He grabbed its wrist, slick and cold, and used its own momentum to slam it into the one behind it. Crunch. The creature didn't just break, it burst. Purple ichor exploded into the water, clouding his vision. The rest of the swarm went into a frenzy at the smell of blood. They converged. Harry kicked hard, shooting upward to gain distance. He pointed his wand down. Relatio. A jet of boiling water shot from his wand. Usually, this would scatter them. Today, the purple-eyed monsters just swam through it, their skin blistering but their aggression unchecked. They didn't feel pain. Okay, Harry thought. Magic is weak here. The water is dampening it. A Grindylow latched onto his ankle. Its bone claws dug deep. Harry yelled, a stream of bubbles escaping his mouth. He spun, kicking the thing in the face with his webbed foot. It let go, taking a chunk of skin with it. Blood swirled in the water. More were coming. Hundreds of them. I need help, Harry realized. I can't fight an army and swim at the same time. Summoning available. Mana, 100/100. Environmental bonus, water. Recommended summon, aquatic affinity. Harry didn't hesitate. He didn't have time to browse. Give me someone who owns the water, Harry projected the thought with everything he had. Give me a king. He visualized the slot machine. The wheels spun in his HUD, overlaying the terrifying sight of the approaching swarm. Whirr, click, 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 result, legendary tier. Class, Founder/Dark Mage. Identity, Salazar Slytherin. The water around Harry didn't just get cold. It stopped moving. For a split second, the entire lake froze in place, not ice, but stasis. The Grindylows halted mid-lunge. The bubbles stopped rising. Then, a voice spoke. It didn't come from ears. It vibrated directly into Harry's bones. Who disturbs the serpent in his slumber? The water beneath Harry darkened. A shape materialized, not swimming, but rising as if the water itself was lifting him. He was tall, draped in robes of emerald silk that flowed in the current like liquid smoke. He had long, black hair that drifted around a face that was sharp, pale, and regal. His eyes were the color of the killing curse. He held a staff made of black coral, topped with a silver snake skull. Salazar Slytherin looked at the Grindylow swarm. He looked at the purple corruption in the water. His lip curled in absolute disgust. Filth, Salazar spat. The sound was a shockwave. My lake. My domain. Polluted by this, amateur rot. He turned his gaze to Harry. He floated closer, his robes not even twitching in the current. He looked at Harry's scar. He looked at the gillyweed gills. A Parselmouth, Salazar noted, his voice sounding like sliding stones. But you reek of the lion. You are a contradiction, boy. I'm Harry, Harry projected, clutching his bleeding ankle. I summoned you. I need to get to the village. These things are in the way. Salazar laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound, but devoid of the madness Harry had heard in the egg. This was the arrogance of a god looking at insects. In the way. Salazar scoffed. They are pests. Observe. Salazar raised his black coral staff. He didn't shout a spell. He just spoke in Parseltongue. A low, hissing, rhythmic chant that made the water around them boil. Sisai. The water responded. It wasn't just magic, it was command. The liquid condensed, hardening into shapes. Water formed into massive, translucent serpents, huge anacondas made of compressed pressure. 5 of them. 10 of them. Hunt, Salazar whispered. The water snakes lunged. It was a massacre. The constructs moved faster than the eye could follow. They struck the mutated Grindylows, crushing them, tearing them apart, scattering the swarm. The purple-eyed monsters shrieked and fled, terrified by a predator they couldn't bite because it was made of the ocean itself. In 30 seconds, the water was clear. Salazar lowered his staff. He looked bored. You struggle with bottom feeders, Salazar critiqued, drifting until he was face to face with Harry. Pathetic. Is this what my bloodline has come to? Gills and desperation. I'm not your bloodline, Harry snapped, the adrenaline making him bold. And I'm not desperate. I'm busy. Salazar's eyes narrowed. The pressure in the water spiked. For a second, Harry thought the founder might crush him just for the insolence. Then, Salazar smiled. It was terrifying. Spine, Salazar murmured. Good. Godric's brood usually lacks the spine to talk back to their betters. Lead on, summoner. Show me this tournament of yours. System note, legendary summon, Salazar Slytherin bonded. Passive effect, hydrokinesis. Water pressure does not affect you. Swim speed plus 200%. Harry felt the weight of the deep lift off his chest. The crushing sensation vanished. He felt light. Let's go, Harry said. We're running out of time. They swam deeper. The landscape of the lake bottom changed. Weeds gave way to jagged rocks and black silt. The water grew darker, the corruption more potent. Harry could taste the metallic tang of the void magic even through the gillyweed. Suddenly, a flash of blue light ahead. Harry slowed down. Salazar drifted beside him, looking around with a critical eye, muttering about how the architecture of the lake bed had deteriorated over 1,000 years. There, Harry pointed. Ahead, fighting a losing battle against a knot of strangleweeds, was Fleur. She was in bad shape. Her bubblehead charm was flickering, the edges jagged and failing. 3 mutated Grindylows, survivors of the purge, were tearing at her robes. She was blasting them with sparks from her wand, but her movements were slow, hypothetical. She was suffocating. Fleur! Harry shouted, kicking forward. She didn't hear him. One of the Grindylows wrapped its long fingers around her throat. Her eyes rolled back. Her wand slipped from her hand, drifting down into the silt. Harry surged forward, but Salazar was faster. The founder didn't use a spell. He just flicked a finger. The water around Fleur solidified. It grabbed the Grindylows and yanked them backward with the force of a cannonball. They were smashed against a rock face, silenced instantly. Harry reached Fleur. He grabbed her shoulders. Her skin was ice cold. Her eyes were unfocused. The bubblehead charm popped with a wet plip. Water rushed in. She's drowning. Harry panicked. System. What do I do? Diagnosis, hypoxia. Magic exhaustion. Toxic shock. Solution, get her out. Now. Salazar. Harry spun to the founder. Do something. She's dying. Salazar looked at the French girl with indifference. She is weak. The weak perish. It is the way of things. She's my ally. Harry shouted, his voice cracking underwater. Save her, or I swear I'll dismiss you right now and you can go back to being a rotting corpse in history. Salazar paused. He looked at Harry. The threat hung in the water. You command me? Salazar whispered dangerously. I am the summoner, Harry said, channeling every ounce of warlord aura he had. You work for me. Fix this. Salazar stared at him for a long heartbeat. Then, he let out a short, sharp laugh. Very well. A king protects his subjects, I suppose. Salazar slammed the butt of his coral staff into the lake bed. Aesthea. A shockwave of pure white magic erupted from the staff. It didn't attack, it displaced. A bubble formed around Fleur. A massive, perfect sphere of air, 10 feet wide. The water was pushed back violently. Inside the bubble, Fleur gasped, coughing up water, her chest heaving. She collapsed on the invisible floor of the sphere, breathing greedy gulps of air. Harry floated outside, looking in. She was safe. I have stabilized the pocket, Salazar said, sounding bored again. It will rise to the surface. She fails the task, but she keeps her life. Satisfied? Yes, Harry breathed. He tapped the glass-like surface of the bubble. Fleur looked up, her eyes wide, terrified and grateful. She mouthed something, thank you, before the bubble began to accelerate upward, shooting toward the surface like a rocket. Harry watched her go. Ally saved, Fleur Delacour. Relationship status, life debt incurred. Current objective, save the others. Let's move, Harry said, turning back to the depths. The Merepeople village was a nightmare. Usually, it was a crude collection of stone huts. Now, it looked like a war zone. The Merepeople, gray-skinned, yellow-eyed, wild hair, were huddled in the center of the square, holding their spears outward. They were terrified. Surrounding the village was a wall of sludge. A living, moving wall of black ooze that was slowly encroaching on the huts. The void corruption. In the center of the square, tied to the statue of a giant merperson, were 4 figures floating in an enchanted sleep. Ron. Hermione, for Krum. Cho Chang, for Cedric. Gabrielle Delacour, for Fleur. They looked peaceful, their hair floating like halos. But the black sludge was only 10 feet away from them. Harry swam into the square. The merpeople shrieked, pointing their spears at him. "Back off!" Harry shouted, bubbles escaping. "Silence," Salazar commanded. He drifted forward, expanding his aura. He spoke in Parseltongue, but it wasn't just snake language, it was the language of the deep. It was the authority of the ancient world. The merpeople froze. They lowered their spears. Their leader, a massive female with a shark-tooth necklace, swam forward and bowed low, her forehead touching the silt. They recognized a power when they saw one. Harry swam to the hostages. He had a knife, a jagged piece of obsidian he'd pulled from the system inventory earlier. Quest update, choose. You can only save your hostage. Saving others incurs a penalty to speed. Harry looked at Ron. His best friend, or ex-best friend. He looked at Gabrielle. She was tiny, maybe 8 years old. She was floating there, innocent. Fleur was gone. If Harry left Gabrielle, she would die. The corruption was too close. To hell with the rules, Harry muttered. He slashed the ropes binding Ron. He grabbed Ron's collar. Then he slashed the ropes binding Gabrielle. He grabbed her waist. "Greedy," Salazar commented, watching him struggle with 2 bodies. "Burdening yourself with dead weight." "They're not dead yet," Harry grunted. "Are you going to help?" "I cleared the path," Salazar said, examining the black sludge with academic interest. "This corruption, it is not natural magic. It is an inversion. It eats mana. If I touch it, it will drain me. We must leave. Now." Harry kicked hard, dragging Ron and Gabrielle. It was heavy. Slow. Cedric appeared from the gloom, looking pale and shaken. He saw Harry with 2 hostages. He checked his watch, panicked, grabbed Cho, and gave Harry a thumbs up before rocketing toward the surface. Crumb arrived a moment later. He looked half shark, transfigured head. He grabbed Hermione efficiently, his shark eyes scanning the sludge warily. He nodded to Harry and shot off. Harry was the last one. "Okay," Harry panted. "Just us." He looked at the wall of sludge. It was pulsing. It sensed the hostages were leaving. It reacted. The sludge didn't just flow, it stood up. It coalesced. It rose from the lake bed, towering 50 feet high, forming a shape that looked vaguely humanoid but made of oil and shadows. It had no face, only a gaping maw of swirling vortex energy. Boss battle triggered. Entity, Void Construct, level 40, . Weakness, none known. Run. Interesting, Salazar said, floating between Harry and the monster. A golem of pure emptiness. Voldemort has been reading books he should not have opened. The Void Construct lashed out. A tendril of darkness the size of a train car swung at them. Harry couldn't dodge. He was holding 2 people. Salazar. Salazar Slytherin didn't flinch. He raised his staff. "You want to see power, boy?" Salazar's voice was a roar now. "You want to see why they feared the name Slytherin?" Salazar slammed his hands together. Hydrocannon. The entire lake seemed to compress into a single point in front of Salazar, then exploded outward. A beam of superpressurized water, hard as diamond, shot from his hands. It hit the Void Construct dead center. Boom. The sound was deafening underwater. The explosion tore a hole through the monster's chest. The black sludge scattered, dissolving into mist. "Go!" Salazar commanded, straining for the first time. "It will reform. I cannot kill what is not alive. Go!" Harry kicked. The system dumped all his remaining mana into his legs. Mana, 0/100. Emergency reserves active. He shot upward. The light of the surface grew brighter. The water around him was turbulent, shaking from the battle below. He looked back one last time. Salazar Slytherin was standing alone in the dark, holding back a tidal wave of darkness with a wall of emerald light, laughing like a maniac. Dismiss. Harry choked out. Salazar dissolved into mist just as the darkness crashed down on where he had been standing. Harry broke the surface. Gasp. Air. Sweet, freezing, painful air. Harry burst out of the water, dragging Ron and Gabrielle. He gasped, spitting out water, the gillyweed fading, leaving his throat burning. The crowd was screaming. It was a wall of noise. Harry Potter. Bagman's voice echoed. He has returned. With 2 hostages. Harry swam to the dock. He was exhausted. His limbs felt like lead. Hands reached down to help him. He pushed Gabrielle up first. Then he shoved Ron onto the wood. Finally, Harry hauled himself up and collapsed on the wet planks, staring at the grey sky. Gabrielle. Fleur was there in a second. She was wrapped in a blanket, but she threw it off to tackle her sister. She was sobbing, hysterical. She checked Gabrielle's face, her hands. Then she looked at Harry. She didn't say a word. She grabbed Harry's face and kissed him, not on the mouth, but on each cheek, then the forehead, fierce and frantic. You saved her, Fleur cried. You saved her. Even when I failed, you went back. Couldn't leave her, Harry wheezed. Ron coughed up water next to him. He sat up, blinking, looking confused. Harry. Ron croaked. Did we win? We survived, Harry said. Close enough. Dumbledore was walking down the dock. He looked grave. He looked at Harry, then at the water which was still bubbling ominously. Harry, Dumbledore said softly. What happened down there? Harry sat up. He looked at the judge's table. Bartemius Crouch Sr. wasn't there. His chair was empty. But Alastor Moody was standing by the edge of the dock, his magical eye spinning madly, fixed on Harry. Harry stood up, his legs shaking. He walked right up to Moody. The crowd went quiet. They sensed the tension. Harry leaned in close. He grabbed the lapel of Moody's coat. The water was poisoned, Harry whispered, his voice cold. The Grindylows were mutated with void magic. Only one person could have done that. Moody's lip twitched. Dark wizards are everywhere, Potter. Yeah, Harry said. The system was flashing red over Moody's head. Enemy confirmed. Corruption trace detected on subject's robes. Tell your master, Harry hissed, that if he wants to fight me, he should come himself. Stop sending sludge. It's insulting. He let go of Moody and stepped back. Moody stared at him. For a second, the mask slipped. The tongue darted out to lick his lips, a tick that didn't belong to Alastor Moody. It belonged to a dead man. I'll pass it along, Moody grinned. A horrific, knowing grin. Scores. Bagman shouted, trying to break the tension. Scores. Harry didn't watch. He walked over to Ron, who was being fussed over by Hermione. You took 2, Ron said, grinning weakly. Show off. Fleur couldn't make it, Harry said. Had to improvise. Mr. Potter, Dumbledore's voice carried over the crowd. For outstanding moral fiber, and for retrieving 2 hostages despite the overwhelming danger. 50 points. The Gryffindors cheered. Harry didn't smile. He looked at the lake. The water was settling, but he knew what was down there. He knew what was waiting. A scream from the edge of the forest cut through the applause. Help! Someone help! It was Percy Weasley. He was stumbling out of the trees, his face white as a sheet. "It's Mr. Crouch!" Percy screamed. He's dead." The cheering stopped instantly. Dumbledore moved. He was gone in a flash of movement, running toward the forest. Harry stood on the dock, the wind biting his wet skin. System alert, the first domino has fallen. Subplot update, the Ministry is compromised. Prepare for war. Harry looked at Fleur, who was holding her sister tight. He looked at Ron and Hermione. "It's starting," Harry whispered. He turned to the empty air beside him. "You ready for the next round, guys?" Godric Gryffindor materialized, looking grim. Morgan Le Fay appeared, her eyes burning with violet fire. And faintly, just for a second, the emerald outline of Salazar Slytherin flickered, nodding once in respect. "We are ready, Warlord," Godric said. Harry clenched his fist. "Good. Because I think I'm going to need a bigger army." Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6, The Shadow Cabinet. The air in the Chamber of Secrets didn't smell like dead snakes anymore. It smelled like ozone, burning wood, and the acrid tang of alchemical sulfur. Harry Potter stood in the center of the massive stone cavern, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his nose onto the cold, damp floor. He wasn't wearing his school robes. Those had been discarded weeks ago. He was wearing a mishmash of leather armor pieces scrounged from the Room of Requirement and a tight black undershirt that was currently soaked through. System status, critical fatigue. Mana, 15/180. Muscle integrity, 45%. Recommendation, sleep for 3 days. Again, Harry croaked. "You are shaking, boy," Godric Gryffindor's voice boomed from the shadows. The founder was sitting on the giant stone head of Salazar Slytherin, sharpening his sword. He looked comfortable in the damp gloom. "Your guard is dropping. If I strike now, you lose an arm." "Then strike," Harry spat, raising his wand in his left hand and a heavy iron sword in his right. Godric grinned. It was a terrifying sight. He leaped from the statue, a 20-foot drop that should have shattered ankles, but he landed like a feather. He exploded forward. Clang. Harry parried the spectral blade with his own iron one. The impact jarred his teeth. He didn't try to overpower the giant, he sidestepped, pivoting on his heel, and slashed his wand upward. Bombarda. The explosion caught Godric in the chest. It didn't hurt him, he was a ghost, but the kinetic force pushed his spirit form back a few feet. Sloppy, a female voice cut through the noise. Morgan Le Fay was lounging on a transfigured velvet chaise lounge near a roaring fire she'd conjured out of thin air. She was reading a copy of the Daily Prophet and looking thoroughly unimpressed. "You are broadcasting your intent," Morgan criticized, not looking up from the paper. "I could feel you gathering mana for that blasting hex 3 seconds before you cast it. A Legilimens would have dissected your brain, fried it, and served it with eggs before you even opened your mouth." Harry dropped his sword. It clattered loudly on the stone. He collapsed to his knees, gasping. "I'm tired," Harry wheezed. "Good," Godric grunted, sheathing his sword. "Tired is where the truth lives. When you are fresh, you can lie to yourself. When you are exhausted, you fight with your soul." Harry rolled onto his back, staring up at the dark, vaulted ceiling. It had been 3 weeks since the second task. 3 weeks since he watched Crouch Sr. turn up dead. 3 weeks since he realized the Ministry was compromised and Dumbledore was losing his grip. He hadn't been to a single class. McGonagall had come to the portrait hole once, demanding he attend Transfiguration. Harry had sent Godric to explain that he was indisposed preparing for war. Apparently, having a legendary founder shout at you through a painting was enough to make even McGonagall retreat, though she looked furious. Harry didn't care. Potions essays wouldn't stop Voldemort. Active summons, 2/3. Idle mana drain, high. System level, 4, new slot available. Harry sat up, grabbing a nutrient potion from a crate he'd stolen from the hospital wing. He downed it in one gulp. It tasted like chalk and raw eggs. "We need a brain," Harry said, wiping his mouth. Morgan lowered the newspaper. "Excuse me. I am the greatest sorceress who ever lived. My brain is perfectly adequate." "You're a nuke, Morgan," Harry said, standing up and stretching his aching back. "And Godric is a tank. You guys are great at breaking things. But this." He gestured to the pile of notes scattered on a table nearby. "Maps of the maze. Reports on ministry movements. Analysis of the black sludge from the lake." "I don't understand the enemy," Harry admitted. "Voldemort isn't just using dark magic. He's using void. That stuff in the lake. It ate magic. It consumed mana. How do I fight something that eats the energy I use to hit it?" Godric scratched his beard. "I would hit it with a bigger rock." "We tried that," Harry said. Salazar barely held it back. "We need someone who understands the fundamental nature of magic. Someone who can take this stuff apart." Morgan hummed, her violet eyes flashing. "Alchemy. You need an alchemist. Someone who understands the exchange of matter and energy." Harry looked at the system interface. He had one random pull saved up from leveling up after the lake task. "System," Harry whispered. "I need a scientist. I need the smartest guy in the room. Initiating summon, criteria, intellect/alchemy/lore. Targeting, legendary." The slot machine spun in his vision. Whir. Harry poured his mana into it. He focused on the concept of knowledge. He focused on the feeling of being overwhelmed by mysteries he couldn't solve. Click. 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 Result, legendary tier. Class, alchemist/sage. Identity, Nicholas Flamel. The air in the chamber shifted. It didn't get cold or heavy. It got dry. The dampness of the underground cavern evaporated instantly. The smell of old parchment and dry ink filled the air. A circle of transmutation circles etched themselves into the floor in glowing white chalk lines. From the light, a man stepped out. He didn't look like a warrior. He was tall, thin, and stooped. He wore robes that were simple, stained with various fluids and powders. He had a short, neat white beard and spectacles that seemed to have a dozen different lenses layered over each other. He was holding a notebook. He was writing in it before he even looked up. "Fascinating transport method," the man muttered, his voice scratchy but energetic. "Subatomic disassembly followed by spiritual reconstruction. Very inefficient on the mana usage, but instant. Reminds me of the mistake I made in 1432 with the teleporting cheese." He looked up. He adjusted his glasses, zooming in on Harry. "You must be the anchor," Flamel said. He tapped his pen on his chin. "You look terrible. Malnourished. Stress fractures in the tibia. And your soul is carrying 3 distinct parasitic signatures." "Oh, hello Morgan." Morgan Le Fay sat up straight. "Nicholas. You look alive. I thought you finally kicked the bucket last year." "I did. I did." Flamel beamed, walking over to examine the stone snake heads. "Dumbledore destroyed the stone. Very dramatic. Perenelle and I decided it was time to move on. The afterlife is quite boring, to be honest. No laboratories. So when this young man yanked on the ether, I thought, why not?" He turned to Harry and extended a hand. "Nicholas Flamel. Maker of the stone. Lover of opera. Currently deceased." Harry shook the hand. It felt like gripping a bundle of dry twigs. "Harry Potter," Harry said. "I need your help. We have a situation." situation? Flamel laughed. He walked over to the table with the black sludge sample Harry had bottled. You have a rift in reality, my boy. I can smell it. The entropy. It's delicious. He picked up the vial of black sludge. The liquid swirled aggressively, trying to break the glass. Void matter, Flamel whispered, his playfulness vanishing instantly. Where did you get this? The Black Lake, Harry said. Voldemort used it to corrupt the Mer people. Flamel held the vial up to the firelight. This isn't just dark magic, Harry. Dark magic is still magic. It obeys laws. This is anti-magic. It's the stuff that exists between dimensions. If he's harvesting this, he's not trying to rule the world. He's trying to unmake it. Godric grunted. Can we kill it? You can't kill emptiness, you oversized barbarian, Flamel snapped without looking back. You have to fill it. You have to stabilize reality faster than he can dissolve it. Flamel turned to Harry. His multi-lensed glasses whirred and clicked. I accept the contract, Flamel said. But I need equipment. This cave is a dungeon. I need a lab. I need clean glassware. And I need tea. Lots of tea. System alert, legendary summon, Nicholas Flamel, bonded. Passive effect, alchemical insight. You can now identify potions and poisons instantly. Mana efficiency increased by 20%. I can get you a lab, Harry said, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. I can get you whatever you need. 2 days later the Chamber of Secrets had been transformed. Using the system's inventory and Dobby, who was all too happy to steal furniture from unused classrooms, Harry had turned the ancient basilisk nest into a functional forward operating base. There were rugs covering the wet floor. Tables piled high with books stolen from the restricted section. A cauldron bubbling with a golden liquid that Flamel was brewing. Harry sat at the central table, staring at a map of the Quidditch pitch. It was being terraformed into the maze for the third task. The hedges are growing too fast, Harry murmured. They are fed with blood, Flamel said. He was dissecting a leaf Harry had snagged from the pitch. Human blood. Trace amounts, but it's there. The roots are tapping into something old. Hagrid's scroots are in there too, Harry rubbed his temples. Blast-ended scroots. 10 feet long now. We can burn the bugs, Godric said from the corner, where he was doing push-ups with a boulder on his back. Fire solves insects. It's not the bugs I'm worried about, Harry said. It's the layout. It's a ritual circle. He traced the lines of the maze on the map. Look. It's not a labyrinth. It's a digestion tract. It's designed to funnel the champions into the center, where the magic is densest. And then. Eat them, Morgan finished. She was painting her nails black. Standard sacrificial geometry. Voldemort wants you at the center. The cup is the bait. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the chamber. Harry was on his feet in a millisecond, wand in one hand, sword in the other. Godric roared, flipping the boulder off his back. Morgan vanished, reappearing in the shadows. Standing near the entrance, looking disheveled and frantic, was a large black dog. The dog shimmered and shifted into a man. Sirius Black. He looked terrible. Gaunt, ragged robes, eyes wild with panic. He was panting, staring around the chamber with horror. Harry. Sirius gasped. Sirius? Harry lowered his sword slightly. How did you get in here? Myrtle's bathroom, Sirius wheezed. Moony. Remus told me about the secret entrance years ago. I figured, if you were hiding, you'd be where nobody goes. He took a step forward, then froze. He saw Godric. He saw the glowing alchemical circles. He saw Morgan Le Fay stepping out of the shadows with violet fire dancing in her palm. Harry, Sirius whispered, his voice trembling. What have you done? I'm preparing, Harry said steadily. Preparing? Sirius pointed a shaking finger at Morgan. That feels like death, Harry. That's necromancy. You're summoning ghosts. Binding spirits. They aren't ghosts, Harry said. They're legends. It's dark magic. Sirius shouted, the fear turning to anger. This is what he does. This is what we fight against. You're turning this place into a crypt. I'm turning it into a fortress. Harry shouted back, his voice echoing off the stone walls. Look around you, Sirius. The Ministry is gone. Crouch is dead. Moody is an imposter. Dumbledore is handcuffed by politics. Who is left? Me. Sirius yelled, stepping closer. I'm here. I'm your godfather. You're a fugitive. Harry said brutally. You can't even leave this castle without getting kissed by a Dementor. You can't help me out there. But they can. He gestured to his summons. Sirius looked at Godric. The Founder crossed his arms. The boy speaks truth, Black, Godric rumbled. He is surrounded by wolves. We are the bears. Shut up. Sirius snapped at the Founder. He looked back at Harry, tears in his eyes. Harry, please. Dismiss them. This power, it corrupts. I saw it happen to your grandmother's generation. I saw it happen to Regulus. You think you can control it, but it eats you. I'm not Regulus, Harry said coldly. The system hummed in his mind, offering him a threat assessment. Entity, Sirius Black. Status, ally, confused, ... Threat, emotional compromise. Action, assert dominance. I'm not James either, Harry continued, his voice softer but harder. James Potter died because he didn't have a weapon in his hand when the door opened. He died trusting his friends. He died because he was a good wizard. Harry stepped closer to Sirius. I don't want to be a good wizard, Sirius. I want to be a living one. Sirius stared at him. He looked at the hard set of Harry's jaw, the scars on his arms from training, the cold calculation in his green eyes. He realized, with a breaking heart, that the boy he remembered was gone. You sound like him, Sirius whispered. You sound like Riddle. Harry didn't flinch. Riddle wants to kill the world. I just want to kill him. If I have to use his methods to do it, I will. Sirius slumped. The fight went out of him. He looked old. I can't stay here, Sirius said quietly. I can't watch you do this. Then go, Harry said. Go to Remus. Tell him to keep his head down. I'll handle the tournament. Sirius looked at him one last time. Be careful, Harry. The dead don't make good friends. He transformed back into the dog and trotted away, his tail between his legs. The silence in the chamber was heavy. He is weak, Godric stated flatly. He is scared, Harry corrected. He sat back down at the table. He didn't cry. He didn't have time to cry. Back to work. Flamel, what about the fertilizer? Flamel looked at Harry with a new kind of respect. Right. The fertilizer. It's dragon blood mixed with hydration salts. Highly volatile. Harry listened, but a part of him felt a door close in his heart. Sirius was the past. This room, this shadow cabinet, was the future. 1 week later, the intruder. It was 2 a.m. The chamber was silent, save for the crackling of the fire. Flamel was asleep in a conjured hammock. Godric was deactivated to save mana. Morgan was meditating. Harry was awake. He was practicing a wand movement, a slicing hex, over and over again. Swish. Flick. Slash. Your elbow is too high. Harry spun around, wand raised. Standing at the entrance of the chamber, leaning against a pillar, was Fleur Delacour. She wasn't wearing her school robes. She was wearing a sleek, powder-blue dueling leotard that looked flexible and tough. Her silver hair was tied back in a severe ponytail. "How did you get in?" Harry asked, lowering his wand slightly. "The password is in Parseltongue." Fleur smirked. She walked into the light. "I followed you. Under your cloak. You are noisy when you walk, Harry. Your heavy boots. And the door." "I blasted it," Fleur shrugged elegantly. "Vila magic. We do not need snakes to open doors. We just persuade the stone to move." She looked around the chamber. She saw the alchemy lab, the weapons rack, the sleeping Flamel. She didn't look scared. She looked impressed. "So," Fleur said, walking up to him. "This is where you hide. While the rest of us study in the library like children, you are down here building an army." "I'm not hiding," Harry said. "I'm working." "I see." Fleur walked around him. The system highlighted her. Entity, Fleur Delacour. Status, ally. Intent, curiosity/desire/combat. "I want to help," Fleur said abruptly. "I don't need help," Harry lied. "Liar," Fleur stopped in front of him. She was taller than him, but only just. Her blue eyes were piercing. "I saw you at the lake. You saved Gabrielle. You saved Ron. You fought that thing. But I saw your face, Harry. You are lonely." "I have them," Harry gestured to the sleeping summons. "They are ghosts," Fleur scoffed. "Cold. Dead. You need someone warm. Someone alive." She drew her wand. It was smooth rosewood. "Spar with me," she challenged. "Fleur, I'm tired and scared." She raised an eyebrow. "Zay big warlord is scared of a French girl." Harry grinned. He couldn't help it. "Fine. First to disarm." "First to yield," Fleur corrected. She moved fast. "Stupefy." Harry deflected it with a shield charm. He countered with a disarming spell. Fleur pirouetted out of the way, moving with supernatural grace. She fired a stream of birds, canaries, that transformed mid-air into sharp darts. Harry rolled across the table, scattering maps. He summoned a gust of wind to blow the darts away. "Defindo." Harry cast. Fleur blocked it with a wall of ice she conjured from the moisture in the air. She shattered the ice toward him, sending shards flying like shrapnel. Harry didn't use magic. He used the system. Activate, Roman shield stance. He grabbed a metal tray from the table and used it to deflect the ice shards. Clang. 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 He charged her. Fleur's eyes widened. She wasn't expecting a physical attack. Harry dropped the tray and tackled her. They hit the rugs, rolling. Fleur was strong, Vila strength, but Harry had the weight of Godric's training. He pinned her wrists above her head. They froze. Harry was breathing hard, hovering over her. Fleur was flushed, her chest heaving. The sparring match was over. The adrenaline was still pumping. "I yield," Fleur whispered. She didn't look defeated. She looked electrified. Harry stared down at her. The system was going crazy in his peripheral vision. Relationship status, elevated. Target is open to romance. Suggestion, kiss her, you idiot. Harry let go of her wrists. He sat back. "You're fast," Harry said. Fleur sat up, fixing her hair. "And you are brutal. You fight like you have nothing to lose." "I don't," Harry said. Fleur reached out. She cupped his face. This time, he didn't pull away. The Vila allure was there, but it wasn't a trap anymore. It was just her. You have me, she said fiercely. We are in this together. The tournament. Voldemort. All of it. She leaned in. The kiss was hot, desperate, and tasted of ozone and mint. It wasn't a soft, movie-style kiss. It was a promise of alliance. It was two soldiers finding comfort in a foxhole. When they broke apart, Harry felt grounded. The buzzing of the system quieted down. The constant noise of the summons in his head faded. Stay, Harry said. We have room. I intend to, Fleur smiled. Besides, your alchemy man, he is brewing tea. It smells terrible. I must fix it. The Council of War the next morning, the chamber was full. Harry sat at the head of the table. Fleur was on his right. Flamel was on his left. Godric stood behind him. Morgan was floating cross-legged in the air. Status, Harry commanded. The third task is in 3 days, Flamel began, adjusting his glasses. The maze is fully grown. My sensors indicate that the center of the maze is acting as a dimensional anchor. Anchor for what? Fleur asked, sipping tea she had brewed herself. For a portkey, Morgan answered. A massive one. Not just to move a person. To move a location. He wants to transport the center of the maze. Harry asked. No, Flamel shook his head grimly. He wants to bridge the gap to the graveyard. He wants to bring the graveyard here. Or at least, overlap the realities. Harry looked at the map. So if I touch the cup. You go to him, Godric said. And he will be waiting with his army. But if I don't touch the cup, Harry said, the ritual fails. No, Flamel corrected. The ritual is keyed to blood. Specifically, the blood of the enemy. If you don't enter the maze, the magic will seek you out. The maze will expand. It will consume the castle until it finds you. Harry slammed his fist on the table. So I have to play his game. Again. Not his game, Morgan smiled, her eyes glittering. We changed the rules. You go into the maze. You make it to the center. But you don't go alone. The rules say only champions, Fleur noted. The rules are written by the Ministry, Harry said, standing up. And the Ministry works for Voldemort now, whether they know it or not. He looked at his team. I'm going in, Harry said. I'm going to smash through every beast, every trap, and every spell. And when I get to that cup, I'm going to summon the biggest, baddest army this world has ever seen. He turned to the system interface. Quest, the final countdown. Objective, prepare for the endgame. Available mana, 200/200, max, dot. Legendary token ready. Fleur, Harry said. You take the left flank of the maze. Krum will take the right. Cedric. Cedric is the wild card. Keep him safe, but keep him away from the cup. And you? Fleur asked. I'm taking the middle, Harry said. Straight through. That is where the Skrulls are, Godric laughed. And the Acromantulas. And the Sphinx. Good, Harry strapped his sword belt on. I need the XP. One more thing, Flamel interrupted. He slid a small, glowing stone across the table. It wasn't the Philosopher's Stone, it was blue, pulsing with a cold light. What is this? Harry asked. A soul anchor, Flamel said seriously. If you die, if your body is destroyed, this will catch your consciousness. It gives you about 5 minutes to be resurrected before you fade. Harry picked up the stone. It was cold. Let's hope I don't need it. He looked at the group. A dead warlord. A chaotic sorceress. An immortal alchemist. And a French champion. The Shadow Cabinet is adjourned, Harry said. Let's go win a war. As they prepared to leave, the walls of the chamber rumbled. Dust fell from the ceiling. It begins, Godric roared, drawing his sword. Harry looked at his map. The red dot marking the maze was pulsating. It was growing. He's impatient, Harry muttered. He walked to the exit, Fleur falling into step beside him, her hand brushing his. The time for hiding was over. The warlord was coming out to play. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7, The Graveyard of Gods. The stadium smelled like popcorn and impending doom. It was a strange sensory mix. On one hand, you had the brass band playing a jaunty, up-tempo version of the Hogwarts school song that sounded like it was being performed by drunk goblins. On the other hand, you had the oppressive, suffocating magical pressure radiating from the 20-foot-tall hedge walls that had swallowed the Quidditch pitch hole. Harry Potter stood at the entrance of the maze, bouncing on the balls of his feet. He wasn't nervous. Nervous was for people who didn't have a spectral Viking warlord screaming motivational quotes in their ear. Chest out. Godric Gryffindor bellowed, invisible to the screaming crowd but deafening to Harry. You are not a student walking to class. You are a conqueror marching to claim land. Look at them. They cheer for blood. Give them a show. I'm trying to save my energy, Godric, Harry muttered, adjusting the straps of his dragon-hide bracers. He checked his belt, sword on the left, wand holster on the right, potion pouches at the back. He looked less like a seeker and more like a mercenary who'd raided an armory. Mr. Potter. Ludo Bagman's voice boomed, amplified to a magnitude that rattled Harry's molars. Feeling confident? The maze is looking lively tonight. Lively is one word for it, Harry said, staring at the entrance. The system overlaid the hedge with a grim analysis. Location, the Void Maze, threat level, extreme, corruption, 35% and rising, note, the hedges are hungry. Do not touch the leaves. Ladies and gentlemen. Bagman shouted to the stands, which were a sea of waving flags. The third and final task. The Triwizard Cup awaits in the center. The first to touch it wins. Harry glanced to his left. Cedric Diggory was there, looking pale but determined. He gave Harry a tight nod. Beside him, Victor Crumb was cracking his knuckles, his face a mask of stone. Fleur Delacour stood on the far right, looking sleek in her blue combat leotard. She caught Harry's eye and tapped her chest, right over her heart. Be careful. Harry tapped his own chest. See you on the other side. Champions. Dumbledore's voice cut through the noise, grave and heavy. There are no dragons in there. But there are things, darker. If you wish to withdraw, send up red sparks. There is no shame in survival. He looked directly at Harry when he said it. The old man knew. He could feel the shifting tides of magic just as well as Flamel could. On the cannon. Bagman yelled. Harry closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, centering himself. He visualized his mind as a fortress, a trick Morgan had drilled into him until he dreamt in brick and mortar. He checked his mana pool. Mana, 200/200, status, overcharged, buffs active, alchemical vitality, Flamel, warlord stance, Godric, dot. Boom. The cannon fired. Harry didn't run. He exploded off the line. While Cedric and Fleur jogged into their respective entrances, Harry utilized the sprint skill passive he'd grinded out during those morning runs. He was a blur. He hit the darkness of the maze entrance and vanished from the crowd's sight. The moment he crossed the threshold, the noise of the stadium cut out. Instantly. It wasn't just quiet, it was dead silence. The air temperature dropped 20 degrees. The sky above, which had been a twilight blue, turned a sickly, bruised purple. Welcome to the belly of the beast, Morgan Le Fay's voice purred in his mind. Do you feel it, darling? The static? I feel it, Harry whispered, drawing his sword. The path ahead was narrow. The hedges weren't just plants, they were writhing, thorny tendrils of black-green matter that seemed to absorb the light from his wand tip. Rustle. To his left. Enemy detected, type, blast-ended scrut, void touched, level, 25, a creature scuttled around the corner. It was massive, 10 feet long, looking like a cross between a giant scorpion and a crab, but its shell was cracked and oozing that same black sludge Harry had seen in the lake. Its stinger glowed with a chaotic, crackling purple energy instead of fire. It hissed, a sound like steam escaping a high-pressure valve, and charged. Don't use magic on the shell. Flamel warned from inside Harry's head. It reflects. I know. Harry shouted. He didn't cast a spell. He slid. Harry dropped to his knees, the momentum carrying him forward across the dirt path, right under the lunging pincer of the scrut. As he slid underneath the beast's soft underbelly, he thrust his iron sword upward with both hands. Skill, piercing strike, squelch. The blade sank deep into the soft flesh. Harry twisted the handle and ripped it out as he slid out the other side. The scrut shrieked, a sound that vibrated in Harry's bones, and collapsed, thrashing as it dissolved into a puddle of black tar. XP gained, 400, loot, void essence, common. Harry scrambled to his feet, wiping slime off his shoulder. One down. About 50 to go. Move, Godric barked. The mist is rising. A thick, golden mist was seeping out of the ground. It wasn't natural. Gravity inversion ahead, Morgan analyzed instantly. Don't trust your eyes. Harry ran. He took a left turn, then a right. The maze was changing as he moved. Walls were closing in behind him, sealing off the exit. Harry. A scream. It sounded like Hermione. Harry froze. He spun around. Harry, help me. Hermione was tangled in the vines of the hedge, thorns digging into her skin. She was bleeding. Crying. Harry raised his wand. It's a boggart, Morgan said, bored. Or a mimic. Look at the shoes. Harry looked. Hermione was wearing mismatched socks. Ridiculous, Harry muttered, but he didn't use the spell. He just channeled raw mana through his fist and punched the vision in the face. The boggart burst into smoke. Ruthless, Godric laughed. I like it. Harry kept running. He checked the map in his HUD. The blue dot representing him was moving toward the center, but the red pulse of the cup was getting erratic. It's moving, Harry realized. The cup isn't stationary. It's drifting between dimensions. Then we must anchor it, Flamel said. Harry, you need to speed up. The structural integrity of this pocket dimension is failing. If it collapses while you're inside, you'll be spaghetti. Faster, Harry grit his teeth. System, activate adrenaline surge. Skill active, adrenaline surge, stamina drain increased. Speed increased by 50%. He tore through the maze. He vaulted over a pit of quicksand. He blasted a path through a wall of solid ice with a bombardment hex that would have made a Death Eater blush. He turned a final corner and skidded to a halt. A sphinx was blocking the path. But it wasn't the majestic creature from the books. This one looked sick. Its fur was patchy, its eyes were entirely black, and it was drooling the black sludge. It opened its mouth to speak, likely to ask a riddle. I don't have time, Harry snarled. He raised his hand. Summon, temporary. Tier, common. Unit, Roman ballista crew. For 10 seconds, 3 translucent Roman engineers and a massive siege weapon materialized in the narrow corridor. They didn't ask questions. They cranked the lever and fired a 6-foot iron bolt. Thwack. The bolt hit the Sphinx in the shoulder, pinning it to the hedge wall. The creature roared in confusion and pain. "Sorry!" Harry yelled as he sprinted past the pinned monster. System note: you have violated the rules of the riddle. Reputation with sphinxes, hated. Add it to the list, Harry panted. He burst into the clearing. The center of the maze. It was a wide, circular patch of grass. In the middle, on a plinth, glowed the Triwizard Cup. It was shining with a blue light that was so bright it hurt to look at. But Harry wasn't alone. Cedric Diggory was sprinting from the opposite entrance. He saw Harry. "Harry!" Cedric yelled, grinning. He looked beat up, robes torn, scorch marks on his face, but he was running. "We made it." They reached the plinth at the same time. Both stopped, chests heaving. "Together?" Cedric gasped, eyeing the cup. "A Hogwarts victory? Tie for first." Harry looked at Cedric. The system highlighted the Hufflepuff boy. Entity: Cedric Diggory. Status: exhausted/hopeful. Fate: terminal if he touches the cup. The warning from the golden egg echoed in Harry's mind. Flesh of the servant. Bone of the father. "No," Harry said quietly. Cedric blinked. "What?" "Harry, come on. It's the fair way." "Fair doesn't cover this," Harry said, his voice heavy with regret. "The cup is a trap. It's not going to the judge's table." "What are you talking about?" Cedric stepped closer, confused. "It's a portkey. Dumbledore set it up." "Dumbledore didn't set this one up," Harry said. He looked at the cup, hearing the faint, high-pitched screaming coming from the magic. "Voldemort did." Cedric flinched at the name. You're serious?" "But the protections are gone." Harry stepped between Cedric and the cup. "I have to do this alone. I'm not letting you go into a trap alone." Cedric argued, his Hufflepuff loyalty flaring up. He drew his wand. "We're in this together, Harry. That was the deal." "You're a good guy, Cedric," Harry said softly. "Too good for this." "Harry, get out of the way." Harry moved. He didn't use a spell Cedric could block with a Protego. He stepped into Cedric's guard, grabbed his wand wrist, twisted it, and delivered a precise, surgical strike to the carotid artery. Skill, subdual strike. Cedric's eyes rolled back. His knees buckled. Harry caught him before he hit the ground. He gently lowered the older boy onto the grass. "Sorry," Harry whispered. "Wake up when it's over." He stood up. He looked at the cup. "Okay," Harry said to the air. "You guys ready?" "Ready," Godric said, his voice grim. Prepared, Flamel adjusted his mental spectacles. "Let's burn it down," Morgan hissed. Harry reached out and grabbed the handle of the cup. Event triggered, the graveyard shift. Dimensional travel initiated. The familiar hook behind the navel yanked him forward. The maze dissolved into a swirl of color and wind. The ground vanished. He hit the ground hard. It wasn't grass. It was overgrown weeds and cold, wet earth. Harry rolled, coming up into a crouch, wand raised, sword drawn. He wasn't at Hogwarts anymore. The sky was pitch black, no stars. A massive, brooding manor house loomed on the hill. To his right, a church. And all around him, tombstones. The air was freezing. Not winter cold, death cold. Location: Little Hangleton Graveyard, void saturation, 80%, system warning, your mana regen is reduced by 50%. "Here we go," Harry breathed. "Kill the spare," a high, cold voice shrieked from the darkness. A jet of green light, the killing curse, shot from behind a towering marble headstone. Harry didn't need to dodge. He was alone. There was no spare. Avada Kedavra, Harry identified the spell as it sailed harmlessly past his ear, hitting a tombstone and blowing it apart. A bit premature, Tom. He turned to face the threat. Peter Pettigrew, Wormtail, was standing there, holding a bundle of robes that looked like a swaddled infant. He looked terrified, shaking like a leaf, his wand trembling in his hand. Harry Potter, Wormtail squeaked. You're alone. Disappointed? Harry asked, scanning the perimeter. Were you hoping for a higher body count? It matters not, the voice from the bundle hissed. Place me in the cauldron, Wormtail. Hurry. The stars are aligning. Wormtail scrambled toward a massive stone cauldron that sat in the center of the graveyard. It was full of a bubbling, white liquid that hissed and popped. The fire beneath it wasn't orange, it was purple. Harry raised his wand to blast the cauldron. Don't bother, Morgan said. It's shielded by blood magic. You can't break the vessel until the ritual is complete. It's a fixed point in time. I can interrupt it, Harry snarled. He sprinted forward. Suddenly, the ground in front of him exploded. A hand, rotting, gray, and massive, burst from the earth. Then another. A figure hauled itself out of a grave. It wasn't a standard Inferius. It was wearing rusted chainmail and a horned helmet. Its eyes glowed with blue witchlight. It held a massive, double-bladed axe. Enemy, Draugr Lord, level, 45, status, undead/void empowered. You shall not pass, the Draugr rasped, its voice sounding like dirt sliding down a coffin lid. A Draugr? Godric sounded offended. A Norse undead? Here. That is cultural appropriation. The Draugr swung the axe. It was fast. Harry threw himself backward, the blade slicing the air where his nose had been a microsecond ago. The axe hit the ground, cracking a tombstone in half. Wormtail is starting the ritual. Flamel warned. Harry glanced past the Draugr. Wormtail had dropped the bundle into the potion. Splash. Bone of the father, unknowingly given. Wormtail chanted, levitating a bone from a grave at his feet. I need to get past this thing, Harry thought. I can't fight a tank and stop a ritual at the same time. He looked at his system interface. He had the legendary token from the dragon task, and he had enough XP for one more massive pull. I need death, Harry whispered. I need someone who owns this place. I need the brothers. He dodged another swing from the Draugr, feeling the wind of the axe ruffle his hair. System. Summon. Criteria, Deathly Hallows/Legendary/Brotherhood. Cost, all remaining token slots. The slot machine in his mind spun so fast it caught fire. Whirr. The graveyard seemed to hold its breath. The shadows lengthened. The silence of the void was replaced by a different kind of silence, the silence of the grave. 3 distinct bells tolled. Dung. Result, Mythic Tier. Unit, the Peveril Brothers. Antioch, Combat. Cadmus, Spirit. Ignotus, Stealth. The ground between Harry and the Draugr split open. 3 figures rose from the mist. The first, Antioch, was tall, broad-shouldered, and radiated pure aggression. He held a wand that looked like a piece of rough wood, the Elder Wand. The second, Cadmus, was gaunt, sad-eyed, and held a small black stone in his palm. The third, Ignotus, was barely visible, wrapped in a shimmering, fluid cloak that seemed to be woven from the night sky itself. Antioch looked at the Draugr Lord. He didn't look impressed. An abomination, Antioch sneered. He flicked the Elder Wand. Crack. A beam of red light, thicker than Harry's arm, slammed into the Draugr. The undead Viking was blasted backward, crashing through 3 rows of tombstones. Flesh of the servant, willingly given. Wormtail screamed from the cauldron, slicing off his own hand. He shrieked in pain, falling to his knees. Go, Harry, Ignotus whispered. His voice was soft, like wind in dry leaves. We will hold the line. Harry didn't argue. He sprinted past the Peverils toward the cauldron. Antioch engaged the recovering Draugr, engaging in a duel of axe versus wand that lit up the night. Cadmus turned to the cauldron. He flipped the resurrection stone in his hand. Rise, Cadmus commanded. Ghostly spirits erupted from the ground around Wormtail. Not friendly ghosts. Angry ones. They swarmed the Rat-Man, screeching, pulling at his clothes, biting with spectral teeth. Get off! Get off! Wormtail wailed, trying to finish the ritual while being mauled by the spirits of his victims. Blood of the enemy, forcibly taken. Wormtail gasped, pointing his wand at Harry. Harry was ready. He had a shield charm on his lips. But nothing happened. Wormtail looked confused. Blood, of the enemy? Harry stopped 10 feet from the cauldron. You can't take it if I don't give it, Peter, Harry said coldly. The system blocked the summoning of his blood. System passive, blood bound. Your blood is your own. Unauthorized withdrawal blocked. It's not working. Wormtail screamed at the cauldron. Master. He resists. The potion in the cauldron turned a violent, sickly black. Use the other source, the voice from the depths of the cauldron roared. The backup. Wormtail panicked. He reached into his robe and pulled out a vial. It was glowing green. Harry's blood from the dentist. Harry wondered bizarrely for a second. No, Flamel realized. That's basilisk venom. And phoenix tears. He's improvising. He's using the residue of your past battles. Wormtail smashed the vial into the cauldron. The potion exploded. A pillar of black steam shot into the sky. It punched a hole in the clouds. The temperature plummeted to absolute zero. Harry was thrown backward by the shockwave. He landed hard, skidding across the wet grass. The Peveril brothers flickered. The sheer magical pressure of the event was destabilizing them. From the steam, a shape formed. It was tall. Skeletal. But it wasn't the pale, snake-faced man Harry expected. This Voldemort was wrong. His skin was translucent, showing veins of black sludge pumping underneath. His eyes weren't red, they were empty holes of static, like a TV tuned to a dead channel. His robes were woven from shadows. He stepped out of the cauldron. He didn't touch the ground, he hovered an inch above it. He took a deep breath, inhaling the freezing air. Harry Potter, the entity spoke. The voice wasn't high anymore. It was multitonal, layered, like 1,000 voices speaking at once. You have forced my hand. Perfection is delayed. But power is absolute. Voldemort raised a hand. He didn't use a wand. He snapped his fingers. Boom. Antioch Peveril, the wielder of the Elder Wand, shattered. He just disintegrated into dust. Antioch. Cadmus screamed. Your summons, Voldemort turned his static eyes toward Harry. They are echoes. History. Dust. I am the future. I am the void. Harry scrambled to his feet. His heart was hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. System, Harry whispered. Analysis. Enemy, Lord Voldemort, void ascended, level. HP. Threat, God tier. Recommendation, run. Just run. I can't run, Harry said. He'll follow. Voldemort looked at his new hands. The system, he mused. I feel it on you, Harry. A construct. A cheat. You treat magic like a game. Points. Levels. He drifted closer. The grass beneath him died instantly, turning to gray ash. But I am the administrator now, Voldemort smiled. His mouth was too wide. And I am deleting your save file. He thrust his hand forward. A wave of nothingness, pure, erasing void, rushed toward Harry. Protego Maxima. Harry shouted, pouring everything into a shield. The void wave hit the shield. It didn't break it. It ate it. The shield vanished. Harry dove to the side, rolling behind a marble angel. The angel was consumed, vanishing into silence. We can't fight this. Godric shouted, sounding genuinely afraid for the first time. My sword cannot cut nothingness. It's entropy. Flamel yelled, calculating furiously. He's accelerating the decay of atomic bonds. Harry, you need order. You need the opposite of chaos. Harry was pinned. Voldemort was walking, gliding, toward him. The Death Eaters were starting to pop in, Lucius Malfoy, Crabbe, Goyle, but they stayed back, terrified of their own master. Harry, Morgan said softly. You have one card left. The nuclear option. I don't have the mana, Harry gasped. I'm at 50%. Use your life, Morgan said. Burn your HP. It's the only way. Harry looked at the advancing darkness. He looked at the Peverell brothers, Cadmus and Ignotus, who were fading, their power useless against this new god. Okay, Harry said. He stood up. He stepped out from behind the tombstone. Voldemort paused. He tilted his head. Do you wish to beg? Or perhaps join me? I have use for a beta tester. Neither, Harry said. He dropped his wand. He dropped his sword. He spread his arms wide. System, Harry roared. Override safety protocols. Warning, lethal action. HP will be consumed to fuel summon. Confirm. Confirm. Harry felt fire rip through his veins. His vision went red, then white. He felt his life force being drained, siphoned out to fuel a connection to a point in history so distant, so powerful, it was almost a myth. HP, 100%-50%-10%-1%, I summon, Harry choked out, blood pouring from his nose. The Archmage. Summoning, Mythic Tier. Identity, Murden Emrys, Merlin, dot. The sky above the graveyard split open. It wasn't a lightning bolt. It was a beam of pure, blinding white light that slammed into the ground between Harry and Voldemort. The sound was a choir. A harmonic resonance that brought tears to the eyes. The light faded. Standing there was not an old man with a beard. Standing there was a figure made of runic light, human-shaped but vibrating with the fundamental code of the universe. He held a staff that was a living branch of Yggdrasil. Merlin. He didn't look at Harry. He looked at Voldemort. He looked at the void. Order, Merlin spoke. It wasn't English. It was the language of creation. Voldemort screeched. For the first time, the static eyes widened in fear. No. Voldemort shouted. I am eternal. He threw a wave of void at Merlin. Merlin didn't block. He tapped his staff on the ground. Rewrite, Merlin commanded. The void wave hit an invisible wall of logic and unraveled. It turned into butterflies. Thousands of white butterflies. Merlin took a step forward. The grass turned green under his feet. Flowers bloomed. The gray ash of the graveyard was overwritten by life. Voldemort backed away. What is this? What are you? Merlin raised a hand. A geometric shape, a hypercube of light, formed around Voldemort. Delete, Merlin whispered. The cube contracted. Voldemort howled. His body began to glitch, tearing apart. Not yet. I cannot end yet. With a scream of pure rage, Voldemort ripped himself out of the cube, leaving his left arm behind. He turned into a cloud of black smoke and shot into the sky, fleeing at Mach speed. The Death Eaters didn't wait. They apparat away instantly, terrified. Merlin stood alone in the graveyard. He turned to Harry. Harry was on his knees. He was gray. He was dying. HP, critical. System shutdown imminent. Merlin looked at the boy. The figure of light softened. He reached out a hand and touched Harry's forehead. Rest, Merlin said gently. A surge of warm, golden energy flooded Harry. It didn't heal him fully, but it pulled him back from the brink. HP restored to 15%. Merlin looked up at the sky, where the rift to the void was slowly closing. He nodded once, satisfied, and dissolved into particles of light. The graveyard was silent again. But it was different. Half of it was a lush, blooming garden where Merlin had walked. The other half was a desolate, grey wasteland where Voldemort had stood. Harry fell forward, coughing. Harry. He looked up. The Triwizard Cup was lying in the grass a few feet away. Grab it, Godric whispered, his voice sounding weak in Harry's head. Go home, Warlord. The battle is done. Harry crawled. Every inch was agony. He reached out. His fingers brushed the cold metal of the cup. Hook. The world spun. Harry slammed into the ground. The noise of the stadium rushed back in. Cheering. Music. Harry Potter. Bagman's voice. He has returned. Harry lay on his back, staring at the stars above the Quidditch pitch. People were running toward him. Dumbledore. Fudge. Moody. Harry closed his eyes. He's back, Harry whispered to the night sky. And he's broken. Chapter 7 End. Chapter 8, The New World Order. The ground was hard, cold, and smelled of trampled grass. It was the best thing Harry had ever smelled because it didn't smell like ozone or rotting flesh. For a few seconds, the universe was just a ringing in his ears. A high-pitched whine that drowned out everything else. Then, sound rushed back in like a breaking dam. Harry. He's back. Look at him. Is that Diggory? Harry opened his eyes. The sky above was the enchanted ceiling of the Quidditch pitch, dark and star-studded, but without the oppressive, glitching static of the void. He was back. He was alive. He rolled onto his side, coughing violently. His lungs felt like they'd been scrubbed with steel wool. Every inch of his body ached, a deep, marrow-level ache that came from burning 99% of your health points in a single second. System rebooting, HP, 15/100, critical, mana, 0/200, depleted, status, soul shock. Exhaustion. Void residue detected. Harry. A body collided with him. Not an attack, a hug. Or a tackle. It was hard to tell. Hermione. She was sobbing, gripping his torn combat robe so hard her knuckles were white. You're alive. The cup, the maze, the map just went blank and we thought. I'm okay, Harry croaked. His voice sounded like he'd been gargling gravel. Get off, Mione. Ribs. She scrambled back, looking horrified at his appearance. Harry knew he must look like hell. He was covered in graveyard dirt, dried blood, and shimmering specks of white light, leftovers from Merlin's presence. Give him space. That was Hagrid. The half-giant was wading through the crowd of students and teachers like an icebreaker ship, shoving people aside with massive hands. Harry sat up. The world spun. He saw Cedric Diggory lying a few feet away. The Hufflepuff was stirring, groaning, clutching his head where Harry had struck him. He's alive, Harry muttered. Good. Harry. Dumbledore was there. The headmaster's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fear. Not for himself, but for what he was seeing. He knelt beside Harry, his blue eyes scanning the lingering magical radiation coming off the boy. "The cup," Dumbledore whispered, his voice urgent. "Where did it take you?" Harry looked at the old wizard. He saw the worry, but he also saw the calculation. Dumbledore was already trying to figure out how to spin this, how to protect the school, how to maintain the status quo. But the status quo was dead. Merlin had overwritten it. "A graveyard," Harry said, loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. He didn't whisper. He wanted them to hear. Little Hangleton. Voldemort was there. The name hit the crowd like a physical slap. The screams cut off. The cheering died. Even the band stopped playing. "He's back," Harry continued, pushing himself to his feet. He swayed, but refused Hagrid's hand. He needed to stand on his own. "But he's wrong. He's broken. Preposterous." The crowd parted. Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, strode forward. He was wearing a lime green bowler hat that looked ridiculous against the backdrop of a Bloodsport tournament. He was flanked by two Aurors, Dawlish and Shacklebolt, and Percy Weasley, who looked like he was about to faint. "He's hallucinating," Fudge announced to the crowd, forcing a tight, panicked smile. "The boy is clearly concussed. Stress of the tournament. Dragons and mazes, it's enough to drive anyone mad." "I'm not mad, Minister," Harry said. His voice was steady, cold. "And I'm not a boy." Fudge's smile twitched. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Now see here, Potter. You've had your fun. You've won your little cup. But don't you dare start spreading panic. He who must not be named is dead. Gone. Finished." "Check my memories," Harry challenged. "Check the graveyard. There's a crater the size of a Quidditch pitch where I summoned a wizard who deleted him." "Summoned?" Fudge's eyes narrowed. He looked at the white particles still drifting off Harry's shoulders. He looked at the heavy, ancient aura that hung around the teenager, a smell of old magic, older than the Ministry, older than Hogwarts. "What did you do, Potter?" This energy. It feels like necromancy." "It's history," Harry corrected. "It's illegal." Fudge snapped, his fear turning into aggression. "Unsanctioned magic. Unregistered spellcasting of a dark nature. You are a danger to yourself and others." He turned to the Aurors. "Dawlish. Shacklebolt. Take Mr. Potter into custody. For his own protection, of course. We'll get him to St. Mungo's. Get his head examined." Kingsley Shacklebolt hesitated, looking between Dumbledore and Harry. Dawlish, however, stepped forward, reaching for his wand. "Cornelius," Dumbledore began, rising to his full height. "You cannot possibly be suggesting—" "No," Harry interrupted. He didn't shout. He just said it. The word carried a weight that made Dawlish stop in his tracks. Harry looked at the minister. The system was flashing in his vision, rebooting systems one by one. Mana Regan, 1 per second. Threat, political. Reputation check, the warlord. Option, submit. Option, rebel. "I just fought a god made of void and static," Harry said, wiping blood from his nose. "I watched him eat a killing curse like it was a snack. And you want to arrest me for a permit violation? You are a child." Fudge shrieked, losing his composure. "You are a student. You do not dictate terms to the Minister of Magic. Seize him." Dawlish lunged. A blur of blue and silver intercepted him. Thwack. Fleur Delacour moved faster than the eye could follow. She didn't use a wand. She spin-kicked Dawlish in the chest, sending the burly Auror flying backward into the judge's table. He crashed through the wood in a shower of splinters and parchment. Fleur landed in a crouch in front of Harry, her hair wild, her eyes glowing with Vila fire. She hissed, a primal, avian sound that made the hair on everyone's arms stand up. "Touch him," Fleur snarled, her French accent thick with rage, "and I will burn this stadium to ash." "Fleur," Harry whispered, placing a hand on her shoulder. She was vibrating with adrenaline. "They want to take you," she whispered back, not taking her eyes off Shacklebolt. "They do not know what you are. This is treason." Fudge roared, pointing a trembling finger. "Assaulting an Auror. Foreign intervention. Dumbledore, control your students." "They are not my students right now, Cornelius," Dumbledore said quietly. "They are soldiers who just returned from a war you refuse to acknowledge." "There is no war." Fudge screamed. "There is only a delinquent boy and a creature. Aurors. All of you. Surround them." More Aurors popped into existence around the pitch. The crowd was screaming again, scrambling for the exits. The scene was dissolving into chaos. Harry looked at the ring of wands pointed at him. He looked at Fleur, ready to die for him. He looked at Dumbledore, who was ready to fight but bound by his own hesitation. Harry sighed. He was so tired. "I gave you a chance, Fudge," Harry said. "I told you what was coming. But you want to play power games." He reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a wand. He pulled out the legendary token he had earned from the system for surviving the void. Item, King's Token, Class, Ruler, Effect, Absolute Authority. "You think the Ministry owns magic?" Harry asked, his voice rising. "You think laws written on paper matter when the sky tears open?" He crushed the token in his hand. "System," Harry commanded. "I need a king. I need the once and future." Summoning initiated. Source, Camelot. Tier, Legendary, Leader Class, Dot. Cost, all remaining mana plus reputation. The air in the Quidditch stadium shattered. It wasn't a sound. It was a pressure. Every person in the stands, student, parent, teacher, Auror, felt their knees buckle. It was the instinctual urge to kneel. A beam of golden light, pure and warm, pierced the enchanted ceiling. It hit the ground between Harry and the Aurors. The light solidified. It formed a circle. A table. A round table, spectral and massive, etched into the grass. And in the center, a man stood. He wasn't a giant like Godric. He wasn't a monster like Beowulf. He was a man in polished plate armor that shone like a mirror. He wore a cloak of heavy red velvet. On his head sat a simple, golden circlet. At his hip was a sword that hummed with a song of justice. Arthur Pendragon. He looked around the stadium. His eyes were gray and kind, but hard as iron. He looked at the cowering Fudge. He looked at the aggressive Aurors. Then he turned to Harry. He knelt. Not a bow of submission. A bow of respect. Peer to peer. "My Lord Summoner," Arthur's voice carried without magic. It was a voice meant to lead armies. "The table is gathered. Where is the enemy?" Behind Arthur, 12 ghostly figures shimmered into existence. Lancelot. Galahad. Gawain. The knights. They drew their swords in unison. The sound was like a thunderclap. Harry stepped forward, past Fleur, who was staring at Arthur with wide eyes. "The enemy is fear," Harry said, pointing at Fudge. "And incompetence." Arthur stood up. He turned to Fudge. "You," the king said. Fudge dropped his bowler hat. He was shaking so hard his teeth rattled. Who are you?" "I am the king of the Britons," Arthur said simply. "And I do not recognize your authority, little man in the green hat." Arthur drew Excalibur. The blade shone with a light so bright it blinded the cameras of the press. "This boy," Arthur pointed Excalibur at Harry, "has fought monsters you cannot imagine while you hid behind your parchment. He commands the respect of the Round Table. If you wish to arrest him, you must first defeat my knights." The knights stepped forward. Lancelot spun his sword. Gawain laughed, a hearty, dangerous sound. "Well?" Harry asked Fudge. "You have 12 oars. I have 12 knights of the Round Table. Do you want to roll the dice?" Fudge looked at the spectral army. He looked at the students watching him. He looked at Rita Skeeter, whose quill was moving so fast it was smoking. He knew he had lost. Not the battle, but the narrative. You couldn't arrest the guy who just summoned King Arthur. "Stand down," Fudge whispered. "What?" Shacklebolt asked. "Stand down." Fudge shrieked. We will, reconvene. At the Ministry. To discuss this incident." "No," Harry said. "We won't." He walked up to Fudge, Arthur flanking him like a bodyguard. "The Ministry stays out of Hogwarts," Harry said. "You stay out of my way. I'm going to kill Voldemort. If you try to stop me, if you try to arrest me, or if you try to hurt my friends." Harry nodded to Arthur. The king slashed Excalibur through the air. A shockwave of light knocked every Auror onto their backside, disarming them instantly. "Then I will bring the past to burn down your future," Harry finished. He turned his back on the Minister of Magic. "Let's go," Harry said to his team. Fleur grabbed his arm. Cedric, now awake and supported by Krum, nodded at him. Dumbledore watched them go, a look of profound sorrow and pride on his face. Harry walked out of the stadium, an army of ghosts at his back, leaving the wizarding world changed forever. The astronomy tower, 1 hour later the adrenaline had faded, leaving Harry feeling hollowed out. He sat on the edge of the parapet, legs dangling over the dark grounds of Hogwarts. The cool night air felt good on his skin. He had dismissed Arthur and the knights, keeping them active cost too much mana, and he was running on fumes. Now, it was just him. And Fleur. She was sitting next to him, cleaning a cut on his cheek with a damp cloth. She had changed out of her combat gear into soft blue robes, but she still looked dangerous. "You broke Ze's statute of secrecy," Fleur murmured, dabbing at his skin. "Into a million pieces." "It was already broken," Harry said, staring at the forbidden forest. "Voldemort broke it when he started turning graveyards into void zones. I just evened the playing field." "King Arthur," Fleur shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "You Americans and your drama." "I'm British," Harry corrected. "You are a warlord," Fleur said. "Nationality is irrelevant." She put the cloth down and took his hand. Her skin was warm. Real. It was the only thing grounding him to the present. "What happens now?" she asked. Harry looked at the system interface floating in the moonlight. "Quest complete, the Triwizard Tournament. Reward, 50,000 XP. Level up. Level up. Level up. Current level, 10. New feature unlocked, permanent residence. You can now anchor summons to reality permanently." "Now," Harry said, squeezing her hand. "We prepare. Voldemort ran away, but he's not dead. Merlin deleted his body, but his soul is glitching out somewhere. He'll try to come back. He'll try to find a new vessel. And ZE Ministry. Fudge is finished," Harry said. "After tonight, he looks weak. Bones or Scrimgeour will take over. But they won't trust me. They'll fear me." "Good," Fleur said fiercely. "Let them fear. Fear keeps them honest." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You need to sleep, Harry. You look like a corpse." "Can't," Harry said. "I have to set up the anchors. I promised Flamel a real lab. And Godric wants a gym. Fleur laughed. It was a beautiful sound in the quiet night. You are impossible. Just 5 minutes. Sit with me. Harry closed his eyes. He leaned into her. Okay. 5 minutes. As he drifted into a doze, the system pinged one last time. Alert, new challenger approaching. Signal source, Azkaban. The Dementors are moving. Harry's eyes snapped open. He looked at the moon. He's going for the prison, Harry whispered. Fleur stiffened. Voldemort. He needs an army. Harry stood up, the exhaustion vanishing under a fresh wave of grim determination. He can't summon legends like I can. So he's going to break out the worst monsters living today. He turned to Fleur. The warlord mask slid back into place. Wake up Flamel, Harry ordered. Tell him to fire up the cauldrons. We need mass production shielding potions. And you? Fleur asked, standing up with him. Harry looked out at the horizon, where the first light of dawn was just starting to crack the darkness. I'm going to have a chat with the Sorting Hat, Harry said. I think it's time I pulled the Sword of Gryffindor out of storage permanently. He walked toward the stairs. The tournament was over. The game had ended. The war had just begun. Chapter 8 End.